to the Father in Matthew 26, 39 to 45. And each time he asked them to join him, but each time he returned, they were all asleep. So,
it's time to wake up from the boat.
How in the hell did anybody know what went on?
This is about the Adam and Eve story. And all the stories.
Who was there documenting what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane? Okay? This is exactly like the prophet scribe who wrote the Genesis account. He actually had the nerve to write, and God said. Like he was there at the beginning of creation with God and heard God said what he said.
He said he again.
So you're getting to imagine now that the people who are documenting about the history of your God, you Christians, obviously somebody was there in the garden, like, Spielberg directing.
And that's how big everything is. Off of TV.
Nobody saw nothing, but we got the whole account of what happened. Common sense again is suspended because belief is adhered to. Belief is what is promoted. It's stupid, or better yet, if you use your intelligence like most Christians don't, you'd see that it is all false. A narrative using myth to teach a spiritual lesson. That's all it is. Now, regarding the existence of the Jesus of the Gospels, I have a ton more information. I don't want to get too tough into all of it here, but I do want to start speaking about how Jesus being the greatest teacher ever known, and the only time you know about him was when he was 33, 12, and dead. All right? Those are the only times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading off some information into the record by an author that I feel writes with my style. I feel his flow. I understand what he's talking about. So instead of me just trying to parrot it by bringing information to my head to tell you information, he has eloquently put it down in a book called Misconceptions and Myths of the Bible by Graham. Okay? That is an excellent book for Christians because I believe Christians, if they do have the courage to read outside of the purview of their little cloistered book called the Bible, they will find a whole treasure of information. A treasure of information. I'm talking about the kind of treasure that, did you see the mummy? Remember when them boys, they stood up there and looked out when they turned on the lights on that? That's the treasure. That's just part of the treasure you're going to get if you just come out of this Christian nonsense of belief. Now follow me, and I'm going to speak as clearly as possible. Prayerfully, I will read for your understanding. The Catholic Church asserts it was founded by Christ and on the gospel of Peter. Well, let's just see what this claim amounts to. In John, 15. So when they had dined, Jesus said unto Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, loveth me not more than else? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, Feed my lambs. This is in John 2. As already explained, Peter is the earth. Peter is not a person. Peter is a principle. And this it is that must feed the lambs, the life upon it. As the statement is repeated 3 times, it implies the 3 biologic kingdoms. The text then is nothing to do with the Catholic Church, save to refute it. As Jonah is purely mythological, calling Peter his son makes Peter also mythological. Today, intelligent people do not swallow Jonah, yet they do swallow this similitude. There are people who actually said that they believe so strongly in the Bible that if it was Jonah that swallowed the whale, they'd have believed it. In John 32 it says, And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have thee, that he may sift ye as wheat. In 32, But I prayed for thee, for thy faith fail not, and when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren, in Luke 22. Now this text has something to do with the Catholic Church. Its close identification of Peter with Satan is very revealing to those who understand occult literature. But of this more in Mammon. Now, the next text of 18 and 19 should suffice. In 18, and I say unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give thee unto thee the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever shalt thou bind on earth be bound in heaven, and whosoever shall be loosed on earth shall be loosed in heaven. This is what the Catholic Church has used to found Peter as the head of his church. But 4 verses later, Jesus calls Peter Satan. Here we go. But he turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan! Thou art an offense unto me. Thus, if the Catholic Church is founded by Peter, it is founded on Satan, as I said. A fact we have long suspected. Satan simply means matter, and so does Peter, the rock. Therefore, the two are one. Peter is but the New Testament Esau, who founded, or was rather founded, a city called Petra, the rock, also Edom, or Atom, the earth. This it is that binds and looses according to its laws, St. Peter's keys. And what it binds and looses is the 7 life principles. The 7 churches of Revelation are an outline of this. This binding and loosing Peter is also the testament of Pharaoh. He too bound and loosed the life force Moses. Warfare with him represents this. And Paul's quarrel with Peter during the Bible times is the same meaning cosmologically. As this binding and loosing is of nature, that of the church is utterly false and pretentious. And this includes the blessings and cursings, its excommunications, so dreaded by its people, no moral or spiritual effect whatsoever. Its results are political and social only, and so but another means of power. And also it was with Peter. We need to understand the church. Jesus was not speaking of an institution that we call the church, Catholic or otherwise. In fact, there was no such word or institution in his time. The original was the word ecclesis, or ecclesiastes, or ecclesis, E-C-C-L-E-S-I-E. And it meant only a gathering, an assembly, no pope, priest, or hierarchy. Now, to understand this gathering or assembly, we must remember the position of the Creator when these alleged words were spoken. It was immediately before the Transfiguration, the invisible elements made visible. The ecclesia was therefore the gathering or assembling from space of the planetary elements into the sun, Hades. The choosing of this personnel is therefore but the New Testament parallel of the Old Testament's chosen people. So, likewise, is the rock on which it is founded. The precedent for this is the rock or stone that grew in Nebuchadnezzar's dream until it filled the whole entity. This is the earth itself. Here we see why the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Why should they, since this hell or Hades created it? After its creation, the elements were again gathered and assembled with evolution. And the ecclesias here is the organic life forms, the life force with which it had to be under the end of the world. Thus, the church founded on Peter the rock is but the earth and its biological life forms. This is the only Catholic or universal church there is, that is nature. It is the human institution. If the human institution was meant, why did it become divided instead of assembled into the 70 different odd sects of Christianity? If Christ chose Peter to head his institution, why did the apostles ignore his wish and elect James the Just instead? He, not Peter, was the first pope. Later, he was deposed and stoned to death. And Ananias, who deposed him, was also deposed. Does this sound like divine selection to you? If then the leaders were ignorant and credulous, as were the original peoples. Now check this out. This is deep. The New Testament, all this has forgotten now. We're taught that Christianity was a new revelation of truth, and its founders enlightened men and saints. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Ignorance is the soil in which religions grow, and Christianity is no exception. The New Testament itself calls the disciples unlearned and ignorant men, and the Jewish judges before whom their converts were brought pronounced them as idiots, idiotai, from which we get the word idiots. Still later, they were called fools in Christ. The Samaritan doctor called them Thartacs, T-H-A-R-T-A-Cs, at their period, in the reign of Thartak. Thartak was a Kemetic god of credulity and vulgar faith. He was portrayed as a man with a book, a cloak, and the head of an ass. He appears in the Old Testament as Tartak, one of the foreign gods that Solomon worshipped. If then the leaders of Christianity were ignorant and credulous, what of the masses that follow them? According to Leakey, they were, in all intellectual virtues, lower than any other period in history of mankind. They were made up mostly of the poor and the obscure, who were drawn in to embrace the Gospels by an inner need, and whose low position on the social scale was a standing ground of reproach against the new religion from the side of its adversaries. It is only the religion of simpletons, the ignoble, the senseless, the slaves, and the womenfolk and children whom they wish to persuade to join their congregation or to persuade. This is what Celsus said. Celsus said, the rude and the menial masses who had hitherto been almost beneath the notice of the Greek and the Roman culture flocked into Christianity. Okay? And Hodges on Celsus said he disliked them for their poverty and ignorance. They seemed to be presumptuous and impertinent people who undertook to be the teachers, having never learned. I will not sit in the seat of synods while geese and cranes confusedly wrangle, St. Gregory said. The many had begun to play with psychic and spiritual forces let loose from the mysteries, and the many went mad for a time, and have not yet regained their senses. They had a full share of tumult, anarchy, injustice, and war. The primitive Christians were men whose ardor was fierce in proportion to their ignorance. These are all the people talking about who the Christians were back then. All this the apologists smothered in lies, and now our deluded preachers, teachers, playwrights, and scenarists paint these early Christians as the inspired few, fighting and dying for some true faith, brand the really inspired so-called pagans as ignoramuses. Tacitus calls Christianity pernicious superstition. The new faith is a perverse and extravagant superstition. This is what Pliny the Elder had said. A superstition vain and fanatic, said Suetonius. Today, a still deluded race looks upon these statements as pagan opposition to the light of the world, where they were just but deluded people of our spiritual understandings. Thus, whatever the early Christians suffered, it was not, as the church asserts, because of the new gospel they preached, but because of the old absurdity they resurrected, belief in literal mythology. Okay, this is why the Christians were persecuted, because they were believing in literal mythology. Another Son of God, number 16, had appeared miraculously, conceived of the Virgin born. A third part of the Trinity walked about in Galilee. This was that blasphemy barbarously told. Porphyry had denounced, yet a band of fanatics called the Christians was actually demanding the restoration of this old religion, or this old fable. In other words, all of the Greek myths, all of the old Persian myths, they wanted to literalize it and say that God did walk the earth. And the people were telling them, listen, it's crazy. All the wisdom knowledge of the ages was burnt in the marketplace, in the light of the world, and triumphated, and the light of the world of reason up. Let me get this right. All of the wisdom knowledge of the ages was burnt in the marketplace. The light of the world had triumphed, and the light of reason had died. That's sweet. I like that. Now, they all tell you that Nero burnt Rome, right? No, he didn't. That was a big lie. What happened was the Christians began setting fire to all the old information, all of the old libraries, all of the old places where they had all of their rivals who were down on Christianity. The Christians began to grow in power, and they began setting these small fires as a form of protest. Now, Nero, as crazy and as sick as all the lying was, Nero used to hold these particular events where even the criminals were protected. There was no death sentence under Nero. This is historically facted. All right? You had life imprisonment, or if you were crucified, you had to have done really something stupid. But Nero was built up by the Christians as being this heinous person who tortured Christians, and it never happened. It was the Christians who were the ones who trashed Nero. And it was the Christians who burnt the churches of all of their adversaries. And then that's what happened with... okay, let's just get to that. The destruction of all the evidence of Christianity's Gnostic and pagan source was really the first work of the church. It was the evangelists themselves who started it in Antioch, as stated in Acts. Speaking of just such things, the Emperor Julian said he would deal with them more at length when we begin to explore the monstrous deeds and fraudulent machinations of the evangelists and their followers. Edward Carpenter wrote this: they took special pains to destroy the pagan records and so obliterate the evidence of their own dishonesty. By order of the church, all the books of the Gnostic Basilides were burned. Likewise, Porphyry's 36 volumes were burned. Pope Gregory VII burned the Apollo Library, filled with ancient lore. Emperor Theodosius had 27,000 schools of the mysteries papyrus rolls burned because they contained the doctrinal basis of the Gospels. By offering rich rewards, Ptolemy Philadelphus gathered 270,000 ancient documents. These too were burnt for the same reason. As someone has said, the early Christians heated their baths with the ancient wisdom, and that knowledge they may have contained, and what knowledge they may have contained. Nor did the destruction end with the founders of Christianity. The fanatics they made carried on their work. The Crusades burnt all the books they could find, including original Hebrew scrolls, Kemetic scrolls, and the like. In 1233, the works of Maimonides were burned, along with 12,000 volumes of the Talmud. In 1244, 18,000 books of various kinds were destroyed. According to Draper, Cardinal Ximenes, 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 delivered to the flames in the square of Grenada 80,000 Arabic manuscripts. On finding similar law in the New World, the Spanish Christians destroyed it and the temples that contained it. All evidence of source destroyed, the Christian fathers could now substitute their own stupidity and absurdities. And to substantiate them, they altered words and inserted verses that did not exist in the original texts. Celsus, a witness to this falsification, said of the revisionists, some of them, as it were in a drunken state producing self-induced illusions, remodeled their gospel from its first written form, and reform it so that they may be able to refute the objections brought against it. On the same subject, Gerald Massey wrote, they made dumb all pagan testimony against the unparalleled imposture then being perfected in Rome. They had almost reduced the first 4 centuries to silence on all the matters of the most vital importance for any proper understanding of the true religion of the Christian superstition. The mythos having been at last published as a human history, everything else was suppressed or forced to support the fraud. It is well known the Christian fathers were notorious forgers. Even the Catholics themselves admit that. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, quote, in all these departments, forgery and interpolation was as well as ignorance had wrought mischief on a grand scale. This is the Catholics, who are the original Christians, saying this. Indeed, Pope Stephen II went so far as to write a letter and sign St. Peter's name to it. When we know, check it. When we know that Peter never existed, these deceptions take on a new meaning. They give the key to the church entire history, motive, and they give us the keys to it. And the whole motive and purpose, domination, wealth, and power. To this end, all else was done, including the fakeries, forgeries, and the burning of books. In spite of all this, we are told the founders of our faith were good men, filled with the Holy Spirit, and therefore above all crime and cruelty of common day.
Oh, shit.
Such is the teaching, yet their own words belie these lies. Consider this from Jerome, one of the original Christian fathers, for instance. If thy father lies down across thy threshold, if thy mother uncovers to thine eyes the bosom that suckled thee, trample on your father's lifeless body, trample on your mother's bosom, and with eyes unmoistened and dry, fly to the Lord that calleth thee. This is the Christian zeal, and the very opposite of religion. And Tertullian, who was a black man, gloating on the prospects of seeing the philosophers in hell, enchanted, say, how I shall laugh, how shall I rejoice, how shall I triumph when I see so many, these illustrious kings, who were said to have mounted into heaven, groaning with Jupiter their god in the lowest depths of hell. And St. Augustine, another Negro on his religion, stated, the enemies thereof I hate vehemently. Oh, that thou wilt slay them with thy two-edged sword. And who were these enemies? Atheists, infidels, destroyers of the truth? No, indeed, the keepers of the truth. Those anonymous Gnostics, those abhorrent Gnostics. Here we shall recall the words of Francis Sweeney. It may truly be said that the darkest and bloodiest records in history can show us, that history can show us, are the attacks of Orthodox Church, of the Orthodox Church upon the Gnostic mystics. Oh yes, it takes more than ignorance to found a religion. It takes dishonesty, cruelty, and war as well. That Christianity had such a beginning may seem to be faithful, may seem to the faithful quite incredible, but if so, it is only because the little that they know about it came from priestly apologists lying for the same reasons as their predecessors. The unbelieving should read contemporary historians, Eusebius, for instance, in 250 AD. That AD means after the delusion. He left a record of the church at that time, and it reads like this. And this is Eusebius of Caesarea. He was there at the Council of Nicaea. He was there putting all the dirt down. And he says, but since from our great freedom we have fallen into neglect and sloth, when each had begun to envy and slander the other, when we waged intestine war against the other, wounding each other with words as with sword and spears, when leaders assailed leaders and people assailed people, hurling epithets at each other, when fraudulent hypocrisy had reached the highest heights of malice, when devoid of all sense, we gave no thought to the worship of God, but believing like certain impious men that human affairs are controlled by no providence, we heaped crime upon crime, when our pastors, despising the rule of religion, fought with each other intent on nothing but abuse, threats, jealousy, hatred, and mutual enmity, each claiming for himself a principality as a sort of tyranny. And we are asked to believe that these men were guided and inspired by the Holy Ghost. Now I want to read this to you. To cite only a few of these Christians, here are what the Christians have. Now, you're supposed to be under the whole body of Christ. This is what these Christians who are vying for power broke themselves down into. These were the different sects, S-E-C-T-S, the Arians, A-R-I-A-N-S, the Nestorians, the Martionites, the Marionites, the Jacobites, the Basilidians, the Carpocratians, the Colridians, the Utrexians, the Sibyllians, the Valentinians, the Gnostics, the Ebonites, and later the Jesuits. Each of these had their own interpretation of the scriptures, and the form that came down to us today is based on the one that won the war over all the others. That's all it was. Another fallacy perpetrated by the church concerns its creeds, dogmas, rites, and rituals. The gullible people are led to believe these all derive from God or Christ, the apostles, and the scriptures. They should read their own Bishop Hilary. He told them where it came from. Quote, it is a thing equally deplorable and dangerous that there are as many doctrines and inclinations and as many sources of blasphemy as there are faults among us. Because we make creeds arbitrarily and explain them as arbitrary. Each year, nay, every moon, we make new creeds to describe invisible mystery. We repent of what we have done. We defend those who repent. We anathemize those whom we defend. We condemn either the doctrines of our others in ourselves or of our own that are of others, and reciprocally tear each other to pieces. We have been the cause of each other's ruin. Here we have the source of our sacred doctrines. Where are they now? Where they are now the work of ignorance guiding. Let me tell you, let me just get to the point. Okay. This is the juicy stuff. Concerning the earth's motion, now this is what Christianity did to science after they burned all these hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Concerning the motion of the earth, this is what your St. Augustine, O Christian father, said. He said, it is impossible that there should be inhabitants on the opposite side of the earth, since no such race is recorded by Scripture among the descendants of Adam. And Father Inoka, the opinion of the earth's motion is of all heresies the most abominable, the most pernicious, and the most scandalous. The immobility of the earth is thrice sacred. And Lactantius concluded, it is impossible that men can be so absurd as to believe that the crops and trees on the other side of the earth are hanging downward, and that men have their head higher than their feet have their feet higher than their heads. How can anybody look up at the moon, the full moon, and think the earth is flat? Think about that. Whew, must have been something in the water. Oh. Really? I want to read something to you, all you good Catholics. All right, now this is deep because this is what they break their Christianity is. No. This is called the Athanasian Creed. Athanasian. And the Athanasian Creed is as follows. 1. Whosoever will be saved, before all things it is necessary that he hold the Catholic faith. 2. Which faith, except everyone do deep, whole, and undefiled, without doubt, he shall perish everlastingly. 3. And the Catholic faith is this, that we worship one God in Trinity, and Trinity in unity. 4. Neither confounding the persons, nor dividing the substance. 5. For there is one person of the Father, another of the Son, and another of the Holy Ghost. There's no women involved.
Yep.
6. But the Godhead of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost is all one. The glory equal, the majesty co-eternal. They aren't even coexistent in one body.
No.
Such as the Father is, such as the Son, and such as the Holy Ghost. The Father uncreate, the Son uncreate, and the Holy Ghost uncreate.
No.
The Father incomprehensible, the Son incomprehensible, the Holy Ghost incomprehensible. And under such a creed, everything else becomes incomprehensible. Now we get to the juicy part, because we're going to drop on this where your Christianity came from. And I want to drop what was done back in the time where we mentioned St. Jerome. Listen to this. It was the practice of the monks either to cut or shave their hair. They wrapped their head in towels to escape the sight of the profane. Their legs and feet were naked, except in the extreme cold of winter. and their slow and feeble steps were supported by a long staff. The aspect of a genuine anachoret was horrid and disgusting. Every sensation that is offensive to man was thought acceptable to God. And the angelic rule of Turbain condemned the salutary custom of bathing the limbs in water and of anointing them with oil. Athanasius, in his life of Anthony of Thebes, an illiterate youth who became founder of one of the Anchorite sects, remarks with approval that Anthony had a holy horror of clean water. And his feet in particular were never contaminated by it. St. Benedict, one of the greatest administrators of the early church, pronounced solemnly that those that are well, and especially to the young, bathing shall seldom be permitted. And his followers accepted the prohibitions with great zeal. St. Agnes, I remember statues of St. Agnes in the Catholic Church when I was a Catholic. Oh, you didn't know that. I was there. I flew over the cuckoo's nest. You can do it too. St. Agnes was never washed throughout her lifetime. But the fact that the lifetime was only 13 years may have had something to do with it. And a 4th century pilgrim to Jerusalem boasted that she had not washed her face for 18 years so as not to disturb the holy water that she used in her baptism.
Come back to the office and I'll have it
St.
arranged.
Jerome criticized some of his followers for keeping too clean. Oh, it gets better. These are where your Christians came from. This is who you are following. These are your fathers. These are your mothers. All right? St. Jerome criticized some of his followers for keeping too clean. Many of the ascetics went further than simple neglect of their own bodies and sought out lepers suffering from ulcers and other people with the more disgusting and filthy diseases, so as to give the ascetic the chance to wash ulcerated feet with their own hair in the style of St. Mary Magdalene, to kiss leprous or cancerous and ulcerated skin, and generally wallow in the perverse delights of proper feeling. It is a pity that they did not try, while they were giving themselves such strange enjoyment, to use any practical means of relieving the suffering of the patients that they were brought around. St. Hugh of Lincoln used to gather together a great assembly of male lepers, and then kiss them, reserving his fondest and closest embraces for those who were the most deformed, and taking care to kiss the actual ulcers of their skin. Oh yeah, this is good. This is an appetite teaser. Make you want to run out and go eat something. Wait now, let me get this. Fortunately, the church can always find unassailable arguments for any policy that seems to be expedient. The Old Testament was forgotten, and the New Testament provided the answer. Christ himself had eaten at the house of Simon the leper, and had cured the leper in a certain city. Obviously, leprosy was not a punishment for sin, but a mark of divine grace. These people were their minds. Even more ingenious commentators deduce from the passage in Isaiah were Langer's verver langores nostros ipse tulit, et doloros nostros ipse poribat, et reputavinus eum quasium leprosum. And he all said, which had up to been just that Christ was a leper, treat him like that, and you're all right. Leprosy suddenly became respectable, and many of the faithful set up leper hospitals to care for the unfortunate bearers of the divine stigma. The first English hospital was in Nottingham, England, and they soon sprang up all over. Leper houses, or what they call Lazarus houses, became the fashionable way of purchasing one's way into heaven. Set up a leper house, and you're going to heaven.
Party. Create party.
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to get some of the other good...
View by game. Create party. Create party. Button. If you press the
Ah,
button,
here we go.
you can change the create
All right.
party. Please wait. Schnofflin's party.
Check this out.
1 player, 8 maximum.
Plague is carried by fleas,
F.05.
which in their turn are passengers on rats and rodents. Okay? This is fun. Now, the flea mostly concerned is labored by many of us in Central Asia. They blame everything coming from Asia. Okay? Fleas were so common that they were regarded almost affectionately as a constant companion to man.
Wow.
Certainly, fleas and lice, if not man's best friend, might be considered his closest friend. And those who were lucky enough to have the best and the warmest clothes often had the most fleas. When Thomas à Becket was disrobed for burial after his assassination, check this, y'all. Y'all like Thomas à Becket? How'd y'all like Richard Burton as Thomas à Becket? Now, when these people show these pristine, clean, shiny floors to the palaces, that's the biggest lie on the planet. When they show you these beautiful looking people, all the women looking so clean, and there was some stink fucks, I'm telling you. These people were filthy. They walked in mud. They were the most disgusting and vile of people. I don't give a damn how they want to flavor it in Hollywood, how the British want to try to sanitize their past, how the Europeans want to sanitize their history. They were some stink-ass people before the Moors came and taught them how to bathe, gave them underwear, showed them sanitary condition, everything. Now, I don't give a damn what you think. You're calling me racist. This is your history. And I'm just sick and tired of you giving me this Hollywood goddamn version with Elizabeth Taylor and all of these people fatting themselves. Y'all was some stink. Let me tell you something. That's where perfume came from. You needed the perfume in the handkerchief so that you could wave it back and forth because the stink and the funk coming from the next motherfucker was too overwhelming. The powdered wigs you saw sticking up on your head, that shit was a beehive of lice. Y'all was some nasty motherfuckers, and don't tell me no shit about all this crap about how wonderful and how civilizing you came up. Y'all were nasty. Queen Anne had a party because she had her first bath on her 23rd birthday. Don't talk no shit to me about you're civilized. Now, when Thomas à Becket was disrobed for burial after his assassination, a large population of disciples were evicted. The dead archbishop was clothed in an extraordinary accumulation of garments. Now y'all listen carefully. Outermost there was a brown mantle. Next, a white surplice. Under this, a fur coat. This man wore a fur coat under a white shirt. This shit is hilarious. Outermost of back, white shirt. Under this, a fur coat of lamb's wool with a woolen pelisse. Then another woolen pelisse. Below this, the black cowl robe of a Benedictine order. Then a shirt. And finally, next to his body, a tight-fitting suit of coarse hair cloth covered on the outside with linen. The first of its kind seen in England. Now check this. The innumerable vermin which had infested the dead prelate were stimulated to such activity by the cold air that his hair cloth, in the words of the chronicler who was there, boiled over with them like water in a simmering cauldron. Friar Alberto, in the second tale of the fourth day of the Decameron, sums up the ecclesiastical attitude of warm clothing. I will do something today that I will have not done in a long time. I shall undress myself. Now, could you imagine you sitting there over this man's body, you cut open his clothes, his 5 to 6 to 8 layers of clothes that he ain't never took off in his life. And they called Egypt the dark, right? And they call Africa the dark continent. The Kemites bathed 3 and 4 times a day. Understand this. But this man had so many fleas that he looked like a bubbling cauldron. Could you imagine how far they leap back? Whoa! I mean, it had to at least been, for it to bubble, it had to be at least 2 or 3 layers thick of these vermin. Because they're trying to scramble each other. It's cold. And they're trying to find a way to get back. Oh! Oh! Woo! Damn! I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Wait, now here we go, people. Here's where medicine came into fruition. Because you got to remember that since the church burned all the wisdom, these people had a little bit of their superstition. They was doing everything they could. Now, medicine was no better. Now, listen up, listen up. The cures and prophylactics were based on fantastic flights of imagination and minimal practical experience, like much of the psychoanalytic writing. Paracelsus, you heard of him, right? Yeah, he was called Theophrastus Bombastus 109. They had to call that one. Now, they say that Paracelsus was the father of quackery. All right? Now, he reported on the use of for the plague people of dried toads to relieve the pain of the boobers. The boobers are actually the boils. That's where the word bubonic plague came from. Okay? So, this father of medical quackery reported on the widespread use of dried toads to relieve the pain of the boobers, explaining that as a live toad is moist and slimy, so a dead toad or dead tried toad will absorb any moist or slimy material from the body. When it is full, it should be thrown away and a new toad applied. No one should feel disgust at such a physic. In such a time of trouble, no one could afford to be disgusted at ever more repulsive practices. On an obscure reasoning that evil can drive out evil, the boils of dead plague victims were cut out and dried and administered to the sick as a remedy. In East Prussia, the pricklings from the boils were given to the healthy in milk as a prophylactic. Wait, check it out. The belief that one poison would drive out another induced many people, particularly the poor who could not afford doctor bills, to spoon the pus out of the bulbas of the dying and the dead and to swallow it. I thought it would get nice and juicy. Wait a minute. St. Catherine of Siena is renowned. Listen to this. St. Catherine of Siena. This is saint. These are the names. Saint. These are your saints. St. Catherine of Siena is renowned for having subjugated the body by drinking a bowl of pus. But it may have been merely a mundane precaution against plague infection. She gathered around as much of a bowl of pus to drink. England had its share of all these magical and pseudo-medical practices. And one can imagine how each new cure reported from the European countries found an eager audience as news of the pestilence came ever and ever to closer quarters. But all the efforts were in vain. While the Black Death, and I like the way they call it, they used to be called the Blue Death because on these Caucasian skin, before it began coming up, all these spots were blue. Okay? It was called La Mort Bleue in France, the Blue Death. But then it became the Black Death. Okay. When the Black Death struck, it carried away whole families, whole districts in 3 or 4 days. Baker's figures of 9/10 of the English population carried off is a serious overestimate, but in some cities the proportion approached this level. In Bristol, for instance, it was said that only 1/10 of the citizens were left alive by 1349. Check this out. The death toll in the church was catastrophic. Reasonable, reliable figures were drawn of the deaths of the priesthood. Well, not enough of them died, though. Because most of the records of appointments to parishes still exist. About 25,000 priests died in England alone. And in one parish of Shaftesbury, there is a chilling reminder of the speed with which the plague struck. New vicars were appointed on November 29th, December 10th, January 6th, and May 12th, all owing to death of the incumbent. The Bishop of Bath and Wells, Ralph of Shrewsbury, writing from the relative safety of his country home, was forced to sanction emergency measures that would have scandalized St. Paul himself when he wrote this underlying message to the priests. At once and publicly instruct and induce yourselves or by any other, all who are sick of the present malady, or who shall be taken ill, that in articulo mortis, if they are not able to obtain a priest, they should make their confessions of their sins, even to a layman, and if not the man at hand, then tell it to a woman. As the sick began to outnumber the well, the dead bodies became too numerous to dispose of, and with any traditional decencies. The funeral services and the burials degenerated into a hasty shoveling into plague pits at the outskirts of each town. Grave diggers and carters to carry the corpses would only be recruited from the class with nothing to lose, criminals, vagabonds, and beggars, and they made the best use of their opportunities to rob not only the corpses, but any houses into which the sicknesses had penetrated, knowing well that no neighbors or officials would dare to enter the house to interfere. These ghouls soon became almost as much an object of fear as the plague itself. They were repudiated in particular to rape any moderately attractive females in the stricken houses, whether alive, dying, or already dead. This is Christendom. Yeah, they still do it in the hospitals. Check this out. Many people fumigated their houses or kept enormous fires burning to drive the plague away. They burned incense, juniper, laurel leaves, cypress, pine, balm, rosemary, lavender, anything to cover up the dreadful stench of the streets. Plague waters were invented at various times to pour on handkerchiefs or into pomanders, traditionally a dried orange filled with fragrant oils, for those who had to venture out. The original eau de cologne, was in fact invented as a specific against the plague, and uses a large proportion of oil of rosemary and similar herbal oils with a reputation for healing or prophylaxis. On the other hand, with the curious doublethink that inflicts a community faced with a crushing disaster, it was also believed that other foul smells would keep away the plague and its attendant reek, and many householders spent their time couched grotesquely over their own toilets inhaling the fumes. Y'all get that picture? Y'all get the picture? You take a dump and then you get over it. And then you go, that was like aromatherapy against the plague, right? Woo! Oh my God. No wonder we don't get European history the way it's supposed to be told. Woo-wee. Oh. Okay. Final before we get to the last end. Human and animal dung and household rubbish all discharged into the streets and left to find their own way to the rivers of their own town. Now you got to remember that most of the filth was going into the very water they were drinking. All discharged into the streets, which was supplemented by byproducts of slaughtering and butchering. Many cattle were slaughtered in the St. Nicholas shambles in Seacold Lane. The meat that was not sold immediately would be preserved with coarse salt or powdered beef. Because of the grains of salt, that's why they call it powdered beef. Just as corned beef is called after corn-like grains of the curing salt and packed into tubes. St. Nicholas after whom several slaughterhouses and shambles were named, was famous for having revived children who had been killed and salted down in the time of famine. They were eating the children.
Wow.
After the meat had been prepared and sold, yeah, that's St. Nick, you're right. Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Old St. Nick. He was a cannibal.
Yeah.
Pigs were killed, and check it out, they got it. Fleet Street is where now Farrington Street was, waited for the rain to wash the rubbish into the water. Pigs were killed on Rother Street, otherwise known as Red Rose Street, and it was the last rechristened Pudding Lane in modern title because of the kids' puddings or entrails were flung into it to make their way slowly down the Thames into the bottom of the hill. If conditions in the town streets were bad, conditions in the houses were a little better. In the country, the poor lived in tent-shaped huts made of wood and wattle around wooden posts, and the slightly
Hello,
better
this is
off lived
Pegasus
in wooden
Lifestyle
houses
Management. How
with
can
2
I
or 3
help?
rooms. In either case, if
So
the
your
family
specialty
owned
vehicle
animals,
is available
they
for
shared the
collection right
accommodation.
now. We hope you're very
The
happy,
anonymous
sir.
author of Gamma Gurton's Needle has a great deal of robust fun when his characters are raking in the rubbish on the floor from the grandma's coddle to find a lost needle. Instead of finding it, they pick up droppings from the chickens and the cats, a theatrical device that seems to have fallen out of use. As the old lady also has the swill bucket in the room, the atmosphere can be imagined. Remember now, the swill bucket was also used for the beer, because remember, hen shit used to get into the beer, and since it causes fermentation real quick, it gives you that head. That's where the head comes from the ale. Now they do it with other chemical drinks, but they used to the chickens used to live on top of the cross where they used to get their beer drawn from, and the chicken shit in the beer. That's what gave the head. So all you beer drinkers out there, think about the ritual when you all are doing it. Now, before we go to from Hilton Holtimer's book, The Genesis of Christianity, Judge T.L. Strain in 1875 said in a book called The Christian Evidence, he said, "Never was there a creed that made greater demands upon the credulity of mankind, or offered under circumstances more fraught with consequences to the interest of those to whom it is addressed. At the same time, never has the array of facts, taking them as stated, upon which the integrity of the creeds depends, been presented to the consideration of mankind upon grounds less capable of standing the test of examination and less entitling as to what is asserted to command belief. And I'm telling you, this goes on. There are hundreds of authors. Now, in my final, because I could have gone on for another 3 or 4 hours, I'm going to break down Christianity through the Inquisition to give you an idea of what went on to spread the faith. And remember, we're not spreading the faith based upon us going along and piously talking to you. We are spreading the faith through fear, torture, murder, genocide, and the like. The Middle or the Dark Ages. And now that Christianity is firmly established, what do we find? The kingdom of heaven on earth? No, on the contrary, a moral and intellectual degradation unparalleled in human history. According to Leakey, the 2 centuries after Constantine are uniformly represented by the fathers as periods of general and scandalous vice. And the following 2 are no better. Bishop Gregory of Tours wrote an account of them, and it is one of the darkest pictures in all history. On reading it, Gibbon remarked, it would be difficult to find anywhere more vice and less virtue. As of the 5th century, Salvinius, a priestly historian, had this to say, besides a very few who avoid evil, what is almost the whole body of Christians but a sink of iniquity? How many in the church will you find that are not drunkards or adulterers or fornicators or gamblers or robbers or murderers or all together? And we are told Christianity uplifted the race. rid the world of pagan sin, and pave the way for true civilization. This too is Catholic scholarship. According to this, the saved and sanctified Christians were not responsible for those wretched conditions. They were the result of the invasion of the barbarians and their destruction of the Roman Empire.
Feed the people all the lives and told us as people they prayed that anything for us.
Dictionary told you that. Here's your Bible. Chapter 22, verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify unto thee these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. Come on, Jesus. We know who you are now. We pull the covers off of Jesus. Come on, sweet Lucifer. Go ahead. So all you Christian motherfuckers. This is Revelations chapter 22, verse 16, where Jesus calls himself the morning star. And all in your dictionaries, you hear the word Lucifer means bright morning star. But of course, your scholar, your Christian scholar, will say, well, he's a little deluded. He knows not what he talks about. It's written there. You keep telling me to see the word. The word is written, and the word is written specifically, and you have to take each word. And each word is the truth. It's the word of God. So why are you interpreting it? It's the word of God. Moses is Satan. Exodus chapter 3, verse 2. In previous lectures, take 1 and 2 of these series, we spoke about the fact that suns and worlds are cosmic seeds and plants. Our ancient master teachers taught the same. The burning bush was the earth in its sun form, or its sun stage of development, which for trillions of years, by our standards, burned with fire, but was not consumed. That's what it says in the Bible. The bush burned, but was not consumed. Well, the bush is the earth in its primordial stages. So it also was with Sinai. Moses meeting God in this fiery mount is only evolution meeting involution during the fiery period of the earth. That point, that nexus, that connecting point. In Exodus chapter 3, verse 7, and the Lord said, I have seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, which means matter, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, that means the immutable cosmic laws, for I know their sorrows. Now, you need to read a book called The Sorrows of Satan. And it's distributed by Amherst Press, and it's by a woman named Maria Corselli. The Sorrows of Satan. Remember, this God said he sent the Israelites down to Egypt. Now, he sent them. Why would he send them in there to be tortured?
No.
All right? And now, when he sent them in there, he blames the Egyptians for them being there. In Exodus 3, verse 8, Palestine is not a large land, nor it is the Negev, flowing with milk and honey. All this verse simply implies is the life principle's evolutionary paradise, the metaphysical forces in higher planes where they are free from the bondage of matter. The life principle's escape, mythically told as the Jews escaping from Egypt, is only the Hebrew version of the Greek Kronos, disgorging his children, and the coming down of the Lord as the same as in Babel, the story of Babel, and is not necessary to the metaphysical script. For Moses is all there is, and he is already down. It is in the burning bush that he receives his commission, not at the burning bush. Read the Bible. These little prepositions tell you what is meant. Read the Bible where it says Moses receives the laws in the burning bush, not at the burning bush. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. Oh, it gets better. Chapter 3, verse 14, and it says, and God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Now, the children of Israel in Kemet are the planetary genes, the ionic energies, the quarks that European science likes to see, all these little tiny things under microscopes. They're constantly looking for the beginning of everything. They got to go tiny. Every time they think they got it, they got to revise their whole scientific book. Chasing phantoms. These planetary genes are caught in matter. These are the children of Israel in Kemet, are the planetary genes caught in matter. Their bondage is actually chemical bondage, because together they create the chemistry that moves about, that brings about form. And it is this chemical bondage, as it is the process of their release through evolution. Moses, like all other biblical heroes, wants to know who his divine recruiter is, so he asks up front in Exodus 3, verse 14. And then the Lord defines himself in two different ways. He says, I am, with the I am that I am. And that shows us that the Jews didn't have shit to do with I am that I am. They created their own mythology. They didn't create their own mythology, I mean. They stole their mythology. No, they did not even understand what they stole. The true creators, our African ancestors, were of a much older and metaphysically wiser, enlightened race of humanity, from which the Jews stole bits and pieces to create a story of their own. The I am that I am is not the one that appeared on Sinai and the burning bush. The I am equals the indicative mood, that is, the present tense of the verb to be, I am. And since the planetary entity is a being unto itself, this term, I am, would more rightly apply to it, that living principle. But the rest of the sentence, which says, I am that I am, is applicable to the description of the motionless absolute, not to the dynamic creator. I am that I am negates itself. It's the closed circle. I am that I am. Beingness. It means that I am being. I am the supreme, comma, being. Not the supreme being. I am the supreme, comma, being. It just is, and that is all that can be said about it. I am that I am. The Latin Vulgate translate it to mean ego sum qui sum. I am who am. In Kemet, all of the temples had carved on the walls Nuk Pu Nuk. It means I am that I am. The Hindu says Tat Tuam Asi, I am that. The Persian said Ahi Yat Ahmi. Everybody was saying this. Now, check this out. I was looking at this Christian broadcast. And you got to look at these Christian stations, because these people are a trip. Do you know that they clocked the time of Jericho falling down as April 9th, 1421 BC? And archaeologists are feverishly working to verify the Bible. But a Jewish scholar, check it out, I don't know his name, but it's right out of Time magazine, and if any of you can find this Time magazine where he says this, please find it for me. A prominent Jewish scholar, bless his heart, said, when they gave him the job of deciphering the Dead Sea Scrolls, they gave him the job of deciphering the Dead Sea Scrolls. When he took a look at what was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, he told back to them and said, Judaism is a low-life, plagiarist. I mean, he cursed what he grew up in. He said, I cannot believe that Jews, the Zionists, killed and maimed, stole people's land in the name of this. This Bible has nothing to do with reality. And it was just a little tiny blurb. And of course, all of the Jewish scholars came out and says, well, he may need a little bit of psychiatric care. Exodus 6, verse 3. And I appeared unto Adam, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty, and by my name Jehovah was I not known to them. It says here. Now, Exodus came before Genesis, right? And it says here, by my name Jehovah was I not known to them. History, the author Lloyd Graham states that the word Jehovah is a Semitic accident. Hebrews considered the name too sacred to be spoken and used the words Adonai and Elohim instead. In writing the name, they added the vowels to the consonants YHVH or IHVH, since Y did not exist, the E or A. In time, these vowels were mistaken for part of the word itself, and so Yahweh became Jehovah. The word God Almighty was translated again as El Shaddai. Another confusion in this verse. The name Jehovah was not known in Abraham's day, yet let's go back to Genesis 4. Come on, Genesis 4 now. Genesis 4 and 26. And it says the place of Isaac's sacrifice was Jehovah Jireh. Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. How is the place of Isaac's sacrifice Jehovah Jireh, even in the days of Seth, in Genesis 4 and 26? Then began men to call him by the name of the Lord. They didn't know him by any other names, remember? How is that? This terrible power that they talk about is none other than the sun. The terrible power created this earth. So terrible was it that it even tried to kill Moses. That is the life force dwelling within. And it came to pass by the way in the end that the Lord met Moses and sought to kill him. Remember? Why? No preacher or professor of biblical history, which biblical history is an oxymoron. Bible history? The end is the earth, and the way of and in the end is involution, life involved in matter. In the entombment of the end life, life is nearly snuffed out in dead matter. But for Moses, the evolutionary savior who came back to redeem it. Now, the plagues, the 7 plagues are merely the 7 evolutionary phases of the life principle in matter, as opposed to the 7 involutionary phases or days in Genesis. The plagues are an allegory about the vicious, ruthless, but magnificent manifesting power of creation as it afflicts the young earth in its own post-solar cooling period. All right? Now, the plagues, the 7 plagues, are the evolutionary inverse of the 7 days of involutionary contemplation that God did in Genesis. Get your metaphysics in order. This was the time of, Exodus was the time of condensation, consolidation, and incrustation, solidification of matter, around what was known then as the centralized will. That's the point when everything began to coalesce from its incandescent stage to its sun stage. This is the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Ain't that what they say all through it? And here, this is too. Hey, and you got to see how really cantankerous this God is. The Kemites speak of the 7 souls of Pharaoh. The Hebrews say 7 hearts. Therefore, the 7 plagues are the allegorical representations of the birth pains and torments of earth's primeval agonies. We see this again in Revelations, the Genesis and Exodus of the New Testament. That's what Revelations really is. Simply a combination of Genesis and Exodus. The 7 plagues are blood, when the waters were turned to blood, frogs, flies, murrain, hail, locusts, and the killing of the firstborn children. The rest of the plagues are items added on, essentially, by Shakespeare and the rest of them. Now notice, after each plague, and here's the dirty part about it, after each plague we read that the Lord, or actually the law, hardens Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. Check that out. If you look at it, Moses wiped out Egypt. This God of Egypt this God of Moses wiped out Egypt. Yet still every time the God fucked over some part of Egypt, it hardened Pharaoh's heart.
No. Nowhere in the world.
But he didn't say that the acts were the ones that hardened Pharaoh's heart. We're going to find out who really hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, this hardening of Pharaoh's heart is nothing more than the cementing or solidification or hardening of the elements in accordance with the 7-fold atomic table. You know how the atomic table starts at, I guess, at hydrogen. What does it start at? Hydrogen or helium and all the rest of them? Well, those of you scientists, I don't know. I'll get into that, the atomic table and all that shit. But when you start at the helium phase of the sun, because that's what the sun is in this phase of, helium. And you start the solidification.
Oh, I love you,
those
love.
7 phases
are the
chemicalized phases before matter comes and coalesces together. So all of you who know about the periodic table, you start at your helium, go to your hydrogen, and start coalescing. The first 7 are the first attributes necessary for bringing about matter. That is the 7 glues, the 7 aspects, the 7-pointed star that the sheriff has on the side of his car. Those are the 7 aspects that are necessary for matter to form around itself, the spirit. So those 7 elements that you see are the 7 primordial essences that mind exudes in order to bring about a coalescing of matter around the spirit. If a scientist had written Exodus, they would have spoken in terms of geologic ages, these 7 plagues. Geological ages.
I can take a circle of life.
Along with the 7 tablets. The 7
1 and the 9. And make something divine.
In Exodus 7, verse 1 and 2.
So y'all can see. Just from that. Knowing the Creator.
We read,
and
the Lord saith unto Noah. Wrong one. Come on back. Not Noah. Exodus 7, 1 and 2. We're here again. And the Lord saith, here, check it. We went to Exodus. Check it. I just got this one. Wait a minute now. This is how it comes to me. I'm just sitting there watching shit and oh, God damn. Yep. And the Lord saith unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark. And the Lord said unto Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with the strong hand shall he let them go. Now he's telling you, the Lord said, after he fucks over Pharaoh, he gonna let you go. Listen to what's being said, people. And with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. This is the Lord telling Moses that, hey, listen, I'm gonna fuck him over one more time. I'm gonna hit him in the head one more time. I'm just going to punch him in the eye. I ain't going to let you go. He'll punk up. Watch.
He'll punk up. Watch.
Now, these passages, 1 and 2, let me get to 2 as well. And God spake unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord. What the passages really deal with energy, consciousness, and dense matter. As energy is mindless and without personality, consciousness must speak for.
Yeah.
Oh, let me get to this one. Exodus 7. Okay. And the Lord said unto Moses, see, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. That's where I want it to be. Check that. And the Lord said unto Moses, see, I made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. What is actually being that he being mindless, energy, and without personality, Aaron who is representative of consciousness,
Yep.
must speak for it.
Must be
This is
fun.
the reason for Moses' speech affliction. How Moses
Fortunate.
complains to God that he is not versed or eloquent enough to speak for his people to Pharaoh. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And this God is, well, check this out. Chapter 7, verse 3 and 4. Here's what he says now. Wait a minute, somebody come up here. Because they ain't going to believe that. They ain't going to believe me. Come here. Now, I read off to you in chapter 6 where it said, the Lord said unto Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go. I'm going to kick his ass, he'll let you go. Now, you're reading here, verse 2 here, chapter 7.
Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, and he sent the children of Israel out of his land.
Next one.
And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt.
Wait a minute, hold up a minute. So Pharaoh ain't hardening his own heart. God is playing this sick trick on both sides. I will harden Pharaoh's heart. So he's telling you, hey, go in there, I'll let him let you go. But my heart never, but you know, Moses got to be a dumb motherfucker if he's listening to God. And God is telling him, go tell Pharaoh let you go. But I'm going to harden his heart not to let you go. And this kind of contradiction does not even factor into the reasonability of that pulpit pimp.
The pulpit pimp.
Now this God is an egotistical God. He wants the Egyptians to know how bad he is. That's me. But he has a sixth sense of reality and maybe even humor. He continues to harden Pharaoh's heart instead of softening it. But this is to show how vicious and bitter the life experience really is. So who wants to worship a God that teaches only through pain and suffering?
Nah.
Chapter 7, 20, 21, and 25.
Created 1 week, all day,
In 20
every
it says,
day.
and Moses and Aaron did so, as the Lord commanded. And he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the rivers in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. That was the first one. This constituted the first cycle in the chemical synthesizing process. The changing of the color to blood, blood is the essence of life.
Mm-hmm.
So when he put that down into the earth or into the waters, those waters were not actually water that you're looking at here. It dealt with the Empyrean Sea, the waters of all reality, that membrane between that which is involution and then evolution. The turning of it red means the conditioning of that which is undifferentiated. The conditioning of matter in its most primal form.
Primal form. The love of us being created. Yeah.
This is the chemical synthesis process, but Pharaoh's heart wasn't nearly hard enough, so we read the second part of it in chapter 8, verse 5 and 6. And the Lord spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come out unto the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hands, over the four waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. Now, what this meant was, how is it now that Aaron can stretch over his hand all over the waters of Egypt when it was only Moses that was the one doing the miracles? So he got a co-conspirator and a co-actor in this.
No.
Only natural forces are supposed to be able to do that. How could any race of people presume to tell us that the Creator would do such things for them?
No.
This is the height of self-centered egotism. That you got a God whipping, kicking people's ass. The only people killing people over in Palestine / Israel are the Zionists.
Zionist Jews.
Chapter 8, verse 14. For I will at this time send out my plagues upon thy heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. Now, when you hear that coming from a brother saying, I'm one of the baddest motherfuckers on the earth, I'm in the sky, I am the greatest. This is the same as in the Genesis, and the evening and the morning, where it says, for I will at this time send out my plagues, and in the evening and the morning was the first day. This is chapter 8. Let me get to chapter 8. In chapter 8, verse 14, and they gathered together, and verse 14 says, and they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. That was when he took all the fish out the water that had died because all the water was there. That's the same thing in Genesis, and the evening and the morning was the first day. Same thing, just reversed. Now check this. In chapter 8, verse 14, verse 16 and 17, it said to the Lord, said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the ground, that it may become lice throughout the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the dust, and they became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the ground became lice throughout the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring on to lice, but they could not, for there were lice upon man and beast. So essentially, God is showing how seriously bad he is and how smoking he is by making lice. You think about that. I am the great and powerful Oz. Where did you hear that? Mm-hmm. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great and powerful Oz has spoken. This is Christianity. That's all it meant. Now, I want to get you to one of the things so we can get a break here. Because I see that your eyes are closing on me. I want to get one that's real interesting because be right with you. I want to maybe take a 10-minute break, and before I do, I would want to put this, because I wrote this specifically for you. This is called Christian stupidity. Believers in Christianity are what I'd like to call intellectual punks. They are myopic, theocratic, brown noses for their God. They question not. They believe. They defer all blame of evil intent and action on their own official scapegoat, the devil. They never hold their God as accountable or responsible for anything but the good. They never admit that the devil couldn't have created himself, or how he could have as much power as himself to create a massive piece of cosmic real estate development called hell. Whatever they do not understand, they chalk up to being a mystery that they were never meant to understand. And why? Because their priests told them to. Most importantly, they never piece together or connect the dots when they are told that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Christians will believe the phrase buyer beware, check and double check. Check your agents or the company you seek services from. Get a second opinion from your doctor. Read the label. All these things a Christian will do while they go about their daily lives. And they tell you that it's the smart, safe, and intelligent thing to do. But as soon as these same consumer smart jackasses walk through the doors of a church, all reasoning, investigative logic, second opinions, and critical analysis or inquiry into the validity of what they buy into, contribute to, support, worship blindly, learn, and accept unquestioningly is totally suspended. And these stupid assholes will tell you the reason why I'm here is because I believe. If this was the argument they gave for getting fucked over by someone who just ripped them off, Judge Joe Brown would have called them dumb fucks. But because some pimp reverend minister, rabbi, dressed up in a colorful dress or a fancy suit and drives a Cadillac, Mercedes, or a BMW, tells you that the way to heaven is to believe in Jesus Christ and have faith in His Word as interpreted by Him and the Bible, the thousand-headed ass called Christianity shouts hallelujah. We are a sick and pathetic people if we can't see through this biblical bullshit. And sad to say, we deserve whatever hell that Christianity brought to us in the first place, if we continue to cop out to this same denial-based, myopic excuse of a reason not to be free. Namely, I believe. What we are, or what are we to think? This type of thinking will yield but crime, warfare, oppression, and corruption. This is the only outcome for beings who are still in the God-worshipping stage. So who are the firstborn, metaphysically? And I want to get to the point here. I know we have a short period of time, and I know the brother wanted to get to this point. But there's something I wanted to speak about that's so glaring in its contradiction that I wanted to get to it, so that I'm going to do a part 2 to this, because I'm sorry I came in late, and I should have started specifically and in time, but you know I won't disappoint you. Okay. The plague of the killing of all the animals. Where is that one? Ha, child murderer. I will kill all the firstborn. Ah, the firstborn cattle. Now, here he says, in chapter 9, verse 24, so there will be hail and fire mingled in the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like in all the land of Egypt, since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb in the field, and brake every tree of the field. Up here 20, and he said, and he feared the word of the Lord amongst the birds, and the serpents and his cattle flee in the houses. God killed all the animals.
No.
Remember?
No. That's your God.
Yet still, what did we find? We found in the next part that, hold on, let me find it for you.
All the lies.
Here in chapter 11, verse 5, and all of the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth on the throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservants and behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts. Now he had killed all the cattle and all the horses and all the sheep already, but he's ready to kill the firstborn of some more beasts. Over here, I'm trying to find it. I'm sorry, I'm being in a rush because they told me that I didn't have the time left. But here in chapter 13 or chapter 14, verse 9, it said here that in the previous chapter he killed all the beasts. But in verse 9 it says, but the Egyptians pursued after them. This is chapter 14, verse 9. Check it. Chapter 14, verse 9, after he wiped out all the beasts of the field, chapter 14, verse 9, it says, but the Egyptians pursued after them all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea. Now, wait a minute. Contradiction. First, he wiped out all of the cattle. Then he wiped out all the firstborn of all the animals. Now he's riding horses. I'm sorry that I can't get everything in tune with you because it came so late. Forgive me on that. But fiction is a lie and reality is a lot worse. We have been told that Moses is coming back. It's Christmas time. It's the millennium. Shit's about to hit the fan. Christianity is now on a recruitment drive. And the best way to recruit in Christianity and in Judaism is to put something so fantastic as to move you to believe it really happened. It did not happen. It never happened in this reality, in our reality as a people. But you, by proselytizing and promoting this particular book and believing that this book is your salvation, you Christians out there, you are playing into your own form of slavery. First psychological, spiritual, psychosocial, and physical. All of your slavery is based upon your belief structure. If you believe in things you don't understand, you suffer. You do not understand the truth of the Bible, so you suffer. You are an incarcerated people. You are incarcerated not anymore by your chains, but by your mind. And if you go to see that movie called The Prince of Egypt, without going with your pad and pencil and a critical mind, you are going to be further indoctrinated by the splendor that you are going to witness. And believe me, brothers and sisters, you are going to be in for the treat of your life. It is going to be a magnificent rendition of the story, but you are going to be made to believe that this man is, as it says in Time, new research and an epic animated movie offers a fresh look at a hero for our time. Remember, your heroes are being wholesale to you. Your leaders are being sold to you and given to you. You are being wholesale given a particular price to pay. When a man like this can tell you that Christmas is connected to your emancipation, I will take a few questions about anything. Questions? Yes. We did. We spoke about the AIDS conference. You have flyers? Okay, well, we'll do that in the afternoon. Yes, sister. Well, the firstborn are the elementals. Remember we talked about the condensing of the periodic table? The elements that are coalescing into their respective atomic structure. And how these atomic structures, their density, their weight, the distance from the electron, the neutron, the distance from the molecule, from the atom itself, gives its density or its personality. And how they coalesce and find each other's orbit creates the condensing that becomes the firstborn of matter. I know it sounds a little bit out there, but Just think about how the dew becomes rain, and then rain as it falls, as the night comes, the dew collects on that which is vapor, water vapor, collects on the leaf as water. The same process that creates water from water vapor to rain goes back into water vapor and to steam again. And then when you condense those molecules even further, you get from water to ice. That same prospect is the way condensation of those elementals into physical form. You are a condensation and a compilation of certain atomic personalities that coalesce to become man. In your case, woman.
And that's what was killed, in the Bible it says the firstborn was killed.
Yes. Right. Their individual personalities died to become the collective one in evolution. Okay? Your body, independent of itself, the eye does not work without being part of the body. So the eye dies of its own personal individualism to become one with the whole. You see what I'm saying? So the firstborn, or those which are the four elements, fire, air, water, and earth. The fire, air, water, and earth are the W-O-R-D of God made flesh. They say at the beginning of the Word, and the Word was with God. So when you say fire, air, water, and earth, these four elements are conscious as themselves. It is only when they come together to form the living flesh do they become conscious of themselves. Big difference. So they are sacrificed. The firstborn is sacrificed for the greater good or the greater whole. Yes, sister.
You eliminate Christianity and Judaism in its entirety. What people that will compensate for that in terms of African spirituality, such as perhaps worshiping and connecting with our ancestors, or what are your thoughts?
Good question. As far as me putting aside Judaism and Christianity as practiced today, because Judaism and Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, all are fragmented, ritualized components of what was once the mystery system. Our giving praises to our ancestors was not worshiping our ancestors. A person of higher elevation in science does not worship something that they know they already are.
Thank you. Thank you.
They connect with it.
Thank you.
And they form certain rituals that represent the dynamics of that which was the becoming of themselves. So the process of their becoming and the process of the mind of God involving itself and meditating upon that involved self, the process then becomes, in an external form, a ritual that we do. So all ritual of melanated peoples is basically the ritual of how the mind of God contemplated on itself to create itself. And we go through dance, we go through song, and dance and song essentially is action and the word. And the word was God and the word was with God. It is dynamic, it is prolific, it is also cold, it is also indrawing. So all of the rituals that we did as melanated peoples were to emulate what we knew intrinsically to be our own historicity from the beginning, what that word means, and then how we have sojourned through matter to spiritualize it. And all of the pain and suffering we feel is basically how God feels while it's going through the birthing of its own knowledge of self. It's the same way that Adam got his ass kicked out. Because there are two different trees. There's the tree of life and there's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life simply is. But it wasn't until they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil that the shit happened. Well, the knowledge of good and evil is simply the tree of life recognizing what it really is. And that part that Adam played was to help it realize who it was by tasting of itself. Lucifer was the first redeemer of all of humanity because it kicked God out of its own perfection. God being perfect ain't no shit about nothing. It didn't know its asshole from its elbow. It didn't even know about an asshole or an elbow.
Thank you. We were born
So
not
Adam
knowing
had to
that.
be kicked out of Eden because Eden was perfect, and perfection equals death. Stasis, no life, no movement. I am that I am.
Thank you.
The I am that I am, when Adam got kicked out, became the I am that will be. Big difference. Good question. So what we do is essentially through ritual, waking up every morning and in the time of the summer, just looking at the sun's rise. That's ritual. Because as soon as you look at the sun and empty yourself, you become that. And you begin to know who you really are. And really, everything that you learn from books, which the white man writes down in 1,000 billion words, are simply everything that is already written within the genetic book that is you. Everything that you are seeking has already sought you out. And you know yourself. It's just that you don't know that you know yourself. Yes, brother.
That's why I love y'all more than I love y'all. More than
Yes.
love you because I know
Mhm.
you is
Yes, the chaos principle is simply God involved in itself.
As all one people.
And that's the schizophrenia that people feel.
Consciously thinking.
You see, in our time, we didn't combat schizophrenia. In Africa, schizophrenia was something that we went to when somebody was talking from another self. We went and we had counsel from that person. Because the schizophrenic was essentially imparting two different spirits. It was chaos and order. So when schizophrenia came in, we did not vilify it, put it into an institution. We embraced it. We knew what it was. See, when the white man came to black lands, he saw us close to the earth, farming, and even Columbus said they had this perpetual grin on their face. They would be easy slaves to make. They did not understand what contentment meant. They were too busy fighting with one another. They were too busy killing one another. They just got introduced to the bath. So, I mean, the whole goddamn thing was crazy. As soon as they killed off the Moors, they went into the Dark Ages. So they were killing one another off in the name of this God that they had worshipped. So you had to understand where they came from. When they started coming into America and seeing contented people walking around, oh, we went to war. But we went to war because of expansion, not because we had to line our pockets. Go get that movie Last of the Mohicans. Did you get Last of the Mohicans, the new version? Did you hear the time when they went up to Seneca? And he was talking about the Yangi, and the white boy was raised with Chingachgook. And he was saying, you're going to turn out being like the Yankees, take more land than he needs, take more food and steal food more than he needs. Is that how we're going to become? Contentment and living close to the land, he did not know who he saw. When he saw people living close to the earth, he did not understand that the greatest technology was nature. And that this pseudo-nature he has, called the virtual reality, called cyberspace, is his effort at creating his own version of Eden, his own information highway. His information highway is essentially our spiritual path. But he has no spiritual understanding. He takes from everybody else's spiritual legacy and he creates the new age. He is a culture bandit. That's why I call Steven Spielberg a culturecidal fascist. Most of the New Age are culturecidal fascists because they go and they learn from the shamans. They steal from the Native Americans. They go to the Africans and they tell you all about the fact that these little loincloth wearing people, and they come and they give you these $1,000 seminars. European man told me nothing spiritual ever came out of Europe. He told me that. Nothing spiritual ever came out of Europe. And he was right. He was right. Everything spiritual. That's why the Beatles ran to Maharishi. Why do you think the Beatles ran to the Maharishi? Because he couldn't find shit in Christianity. Couldn't find shit in Judaism. And they had to kill John because John was getting ready to come out with a whole nother movement. When he wrote that thing, imagine there's no heaven. Oh, shit. Kill this motherfucker. Quick. Kill him quick. And no religion, too. Imagine all the people. You go back and read that. Get that. And they really got to Dylan. What's your boy named Dylan? Bob Dylan? He was taking Lubavitcher lessons around the corner from my old temple. He used to roll up in a Cadillac, a big limousine. He turned you real quick because he, John Lennon, and about 2 others of the old folks were coming back to do another serious resurgence. Like what Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had done. And they were about to come back because of world hunger. And it was, guess who that got John into that? Who's he married to? Yoko Ono. Got his spirituality. And the thing about John that I will always appreciate John, let me think about the Beatles. I can appreciate John because every time, Paul is an asshole. John understood who the darker races were. And in a Playboy, I believe, or a what is the other one that was by Guccione? Penthouse. He did one of the most scathing revelations about the Beatles. Every one of the songs that they were asking him about, he did the black version. He said the black version of them. Remember that one? She loves you, yeah, yeah. And you know, he goes, ooh. He said, oh, that's Little Richard. He went down the whole scale. When the Rolling Stones and the Beatles came over here and they were mobbed by all these little white girls, he said, what the fuck is all this? And they said, what all we doing is copying your black... we learned Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, Steppenwolf, Aretha, we know. How come you're chasing us down? We just imitating them. They didn't know about racism. They didn't know about the music industry doing what they did, but John came out and spoke about it. John and his music, when he dropped that whole shit about Imagine, go back and listen to Imagine, and you see why he was killed. Go ahead, next question. Yes, brother. You get to 2 minutes.
Speaking,
yes, sir.
I've heard that there is no Satan, and that the only sin is ignorance. From some other metaphysical teachers that I've been around. So what is your take on that?
My take exactly, because if all my students here in metaphysics said that, I said the same thing. Satan was actually the planet Saturn. And if you understand astrology, Saturn is the planet of life lessons. You don't do the shit you're supposed to do, you will pay, you will suffer. So Saturn and Satan are the same. So Satan is your life lesson. He is your taskmaster. You fuck up, you pay. Metaphysically, there is no materialized embodiment of Satan, except maybe the Pope. But as far as anybody walking on 2 legs, like Jesus Christ and all of that, these are lessons, just like all the heroes of all of our stories. They had nothing to do with living people. Yes, they are great men. You know, they keep talking all this shit about Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great wasn't shit compared to Hannibal. Alexander the Great, imagine you got 22-year-old brothers on the street, can't read or lick past the 4th grade. And Hannibal was 22 when he conquered Rome. 22. And did it 3 times he kicked Rome's ass. It was so bad. Carthage was so bad. That neighborhood was so serious. It was like the Harlem of the Mediterranean. It was so serious that they said that Rome said, listen, we got to kill every fucking thing in Carthage. We don't want even the dogs to come out of there because they might get kick our asses. So what you call a Carthaginian solution means to kill everything. So they raised Carthage, killing everything, man, woman, child, beast, everything in Carthage, so that nothing could raise from Carthage again. Because of what happened when Hannibal and his father came out of there, Hannibal Barcus. Why is it that we ain't getting a story about Hannibal? Why we got to have Victor Mature playing Hannibal? The other thing is, why we got to be all about Alexander the Great, the Greeks? He looked upon them and he lamented because there was nowhere else to conquer. It's full of shit. You got to deal with Genghis Khan because you didn't get all of Asia and you weren't knocking on the door of Rome when you got a message that your father had died and you changed your mind. And what was Genghis Khan? Genghis Khan was a man who looked like you and me. His description in history was that he was dark and ruddy. Anybody I know is dark and ruddy is us sitting in here. And his hair was matted. That's how we know about it. They say, because he's a Mongol savage, he ain't had no comb. That's bullshit. Wherever Genghis Khan conquered, nobody did anything unless the Khan said so. Women could walk at 2 o'clock in the morning, anywhere where his domain was. That's how bad Genghis Khan was. But you never hear about Genghis Khan, because it'd be too much like right. The sister behind. Mm-hmm. Yes, we already know. You don't even really need it. I'm just having fun. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes, you do. You have something they want. Remember? You didn't know it. Right. Yes. He was very good. Sister got a serious analogy. Good. Very good. Very good. There is a movie, a double B movie. I mean, it's a B movie. It's called They Live. Go get that by John Carpenter. I like John Carpenter. And you will see the same thing. What's his name? Roddy Piper. He had to kick the living shit out of this black man to get him to put the glasses on so he could see. Now, a lot of people would look at it as entertainment. A lot of people would look at it, whites would look at it and say, well, how are you going to read all that in there? Because every place you see dark folks, they already proved that anytime a black man and a white man is in the same scene together, automatically your eyes goes to the color. That's why not too many of us co-star. Okay? So what happens now is you have to remember that whenever Roddy Piper gets in with this brother and starts to kick in his ass to get him to put these black glasses on so he can see what's going on around him, the brother says, "Like, keep your shit. I don't want it. I'm fine. Stay out of my life. Don't bother me." That same thing.
You know, it's so funny. You love to see the fact that
yes. Right.
But one of the things I want to ask you, based on that movie, looking forward a little bit to 1999.
Yes.
How do you see that? What's going on with that?
Well, we are seeing the disengagement of governmental participation by the people. You will have what is known as a friendly fascism is about to come about. The Constitution is going to have to be suspended because of Y2K, and FEMA is already in place. You already are being conditioned for the type of police force that is going to take it. There is a national police force. All police forces have been brought up under the military jurisdiction. The police force that comes to get you now, if there's a problem in your house and it looks like you're crazy, you're holding a butcher knife, these police, if you look at them and you saw them in, what's the name of the one that, what's the movie that, the way he holds hostage again? He holds these guys hostage. Not siege. The other one. Negotiator. Now, when you look at the Negotiator, you will see that the new type of police, they are paramilitary and they wear the Nazi helmets. Look at these helmets. They are Nazi helmets. They are in black and they have no markings. They wear a mask. You don't see who they are. They live amongst you. And they call to duty at any time. Fascism is here because at the end of World War II, they imported all the fascists here. And under something called Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip brought all of the Nazi doctors here. All of what you know to be, what is this particular name that they give to somebody who just wants to breed superior people again? Eugenics. All of the master eugenics came out of Nazi Germany. Even Alexis Carrel, who wrote the book Man the Unknown, which is a great book, he was a eugenist. All the eugenicists came in and became part of the Psychiatric Association. NASA, Nazi are the same. NASA was built by Nazis, the rocket scientists that they took out of Nazi Germany. All of them, yes. The symbol, everything. Rockefeller funded the Nazis. Prescott Bush, the father of George Bush, handled the money for the Nazis over here. The Vatican bankrolled Hitler in the first stages of the Nazi Party. Everything about the Nazis, they escaped. They have this place in the Antarctica that they went into the center of the earth a long time ago. These sources that you see ain't got nothing to do with extraterrestrials, though they're here, but they have a civilization of people, Nordics, mixed, look like Nordics and Icelanders. And they live, and they call Bodlanders, Bodlanders. And this thing with Perry going into the North Pole, and who's this other motherfucker went to the South Pole again? Byrd. That was not an expedition to scout the South Pole. That was an exhibition to find Hitler's base that was based there. They found the opening. Now, here you are. You're going, check this out now. You can read this in the records. How is it that you're just going to explore the Antarctica and you're using an aircraft carrier, 2 destroyers, and a submarine? It was a task force. And they went out with express orders to bring back Nazis who had escaped. They had the flying disc, all the prototypes. When what's his name flew into the North Pole, he flew in with a squadron. They shot him down. These discs shot him down. And when they shot down, was it Perry's plane? They airlifted the motherfucker and threw his ass off and said, "Don't come back." They didn't tell you about that. They fly. There's a no-fly zone over the Antarctica. And the Arctic. There was a magazine out called Look, and they took a shot from outer space, and they saw the hole at the top of the North Pole. They now airbrush everything. Every time you see a picture of the Earth, they airbrush that out. So there are many things going on around you right now that will dictate to how fascism will be accepted by you. The fact that Clinton is yelling for his constitutional rights when he was the one president, he's a closet Republican, who has done more to destroy your rights than any other president. And he's crying for First Amendment and Second Amendment rights. The Constitution has been abrogated. If you don't get rid of all of your contracts now and find another citizenship for another country and nationality, because of the fact that they will have to go when the stock market crashes, you now will be held by the international bankers in prison for non-payment of the monies that you said by your contract with the Social Security that you would pay them back. That's why it's so easy to incarcerate you rather than give you a desk appearance ticket anymore. A desk appearance ticket does not pay for you now anymore. Don't you know that a ticket that you get is nothing more than tax collection? It's revenue gathering. You do not have law anymore. All judges are no longer judges. They are members of the military. They are magistrates that are managing the bankruptcy of the United States. Traficante at March, I think it was 1990 or 91, said, "Mr. Speaker, we are here in Chapter 11. What the fuck does that mean? Except that we are bankrupt. Clinton went 3 places when he was elected the second time. He went to England first, right? Then he went to Germany, or Australia, then he went to Germany. He went to England to deal with the Rothschilds. He went to Australia to deal with the Rockefellers. And he went to Germany to deal with the Warburgs. He refinanced the American debt to the tune of $5.2 trillion that you owe January 1st, 2000. You think about that, brothers and sisters.
Oh, shit.
A friend of mine, her husband, was saying that, you know, there's something
Yes. Yeah, fighting.
One of the things is that, and they were waiting, but what happened, they couldn't go, because something with the border, that's the reason why they couldn't walk in.
Right.
That's when she thought that she was on hold. Because they were part of this operation for Barbie.
About Osama and Saddam Hussein?
Yeah. But what happened is she did something with the boat and the water.
Well, you know, the first thing
I don't
is,
know what damage.
well, let me tell you the first thing. Saddam Hussein and Bush and all of them get together at something called the Bohemians Gathering. They're all friends. Well, you have to remember that when you are a leader of a country, you take an oath. You're a Mason. Okay? And you can't kill another Mason. You can bomb the hell out of all the people who are the thousand-headed ass. They don't mean shit. You have to make decisions. If too many people are eating and there's not enough food, you got to kill them off. Murder and wholesale killing, genocide is part of what's necessary to be a leader today. Because there are too many of us. Now, Africa is going to be depopulated purposely. You saw that in Rwanda, when they were taking bulldozers and putting you into dump trucks and dumping you at 10 and 150,000, fueling old rivalries, implanting people, putting in chips and all kind of shit in the vaccinations. This coming Saturday, next Saturday, we will be talking about AIDS. AIDS. You believe that AIDS really exists. We got two women, one who is from the African American Council on AIDS. What was her name? House? Deborah Ann House? Deborah Fraser House? And some other woman. Oh, we want Barbara Justice there too, won't we? Yeah, we'll work on it. But you believe that AIDS exists when AIDS does not exist. There is no such thing as AIDS. It's a lie that you have swallowed wholeheartedly. This AIDS conference is coming up now, and there are going to be people there that will be proponents of the fact that AIDS does exist, and there are those of us who will tell you that AIDS is a figment of your imagination. It is a disease of the media, essentially, because you believed it. It's a rampant, blowing, festering disease of the media. Now understand very carefully, AIDS, as you will learn, AIDS means acquired immune deficiency syndrome. That's what they tell you.
No. I ain't gonna go back there for.
Be right with you.
I mean, just stop it.
All we doing is copying your black. We learn Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, Steppenwolf, Listen, like, keep your shit. I don't want it. I'm fine. Stay out of my life. Don't bother me. That same thing. They found the opening. Now, here you are. You're going, check this out now. You can read this in the records. Fighting. Dumping you at 10 and 150,000. Fueling old rivalries, implanting people, putting in chips and all kind of shit in the vaccination.
All right, I just want to get back to that part there. Because like he was just saying about AIDS, I want y'all to hear, my doctor after telling me that I was HIV positive and they caught my disease just in the nick of time, and I was getting ready to start the medication and everything. If it wasn't for my provider, I probably would have started this funky ass medication. But I knew I couldn't have no AIDS. That was some bullshit. But I want y'all to hear it. Because it is, now that I think about it, some bullshit. Shit. He hit right on the head when you just said that it's a figure of imagination. Because if they give you some shit that's fucking with your body to the point where you're going to need the medication because it done fucked your body up to the point where your body needs the shit unless you go into a massive healing of your body dealing with some shit. This some bullshit why they ain't want to let my shit play. They doing this shit. And they ain't do this before. Y'all got some control, boy. I ain't lying. Let me see if I can leave that alone. go to something else. Oh yeah, y'all got real control.
I'll wait for the infection doctor.
There you go.
I'll wait for the infection doctor. He just started antibiotic today, so if he's okay tomorrow, I'll send you home. I'm sorry to misunderstanding, but the nurse was always talking to staff and in the office, and when she called, she said I ordered the viral load for HIV. We don't order this test unless it's positive. You know what I'm saying?
Like
we don't order the test. When I came, I couldn't find nothing.
I know, but see, like you say, even though you couldn't find nothing, doc, you came straight to me with that.
I was asking, do you have history?
Now the doctor's saying.
That's
what you said.
Yeah.
You know, you said, no, you know you have HIV. That's exactly what you said to me.
Everything.
That's exactly what you said to me.
Oh, I'm supposed to be misunderstanding. I was trying to say you have a history of HIV.
See, come on, now, how can you have a history of it unless y'all gonna know that?
Yeah.
Y'all would know that.
The reason, what happened that when you order HIV test, when your white count was low, it usually only takes 24 hours to get a report back. It took like almost 5 days.
Well, okay, and that's why, and you just assume. See, you are just assuming, but see, you can't assume something like that.
I just was trying to get a report. I couldn't find a report. Then the nurse practitioner ordered the more testing and get an infection doctor. When she called, I thought maybe it might have come positive or something. That's what it was.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. You came straight to me with that, man. You said to me. You know, and that had me messed up. Like I said, I hadn't went to sleep since 8 o'clock, man.
And that's like because the disease doctor came from me and started on
so like I said, doc, next time do your own research. Don't live because you just said that she was new on the mistake. Because like I said,
and I started my tape.
I could have died from what you told me, man. That's how messed up I was. HIV, man, that's something that you sit down with a person and talk to a person about. And not just throw that on the person. And you just throw that on me. Now I'm still messed up.
We all know that it's a charge.
Well,
there is a charge.
I think because we
charge is
part of the nurse practitioner, and that's what happened.
I feel you on that, but then you got a miscommunication with her. But then you came to me with
misdiagnosis.
I know she was gone, but doc, you came to me with it. Doc, you later and said, did you know you had HIV? And I just lost it because I didn't know that.
Think about a person that was in a situation that I was in when this doctor came to me and told me I was HIV positive.
I did groundwork before I came to my
you gotta look at what was really real.
Misunderstanding, but you jumped the gun, doc. You jumped the gun. When you jumped the gun, you basically the diagnosis was wrong. When you jumped the gun like that.
They tell him that I was critical, that he couldn't keep my blood pressure under control, they couldn't keep my heart rate under control, and then he don't tell me.
But doc, you said you laughing like that's something, doc. That's not something. That ain't nothing small to tell nobody. That's something serious, man.
Because I was low.
So I accept your apology from it, but
I know how it hurts and how it feels bad. I know.
Man, see, you keep saying you know, but nobody never told you had HIV, man.
Yeah, it's very bad.
But that's because somebody got to tell me why my leg. Because when I touch my leg ain't.
Like I said again, the truth is the truth. Period. Fuck all the bullshit. And people are bullshitting with other people's lives, but I just not saw the reason why. The reason why is that they don't care now. It is a real fucked up thing now, because caring is out the window when it comes down to the product. The product is in the old stage, and when you're in the old stage, it is what it is. How could they really care? And that's what you're seeing. And here goes some more right here.
This coming Saturday, next Saturday, we will be talking about AIDS. AIDS. You believe that AIDS really exists. We got two women, one who is from the African American Council on AIDS. What was her name? House? Deborah Ann House? Deborah Fraser House? And some other woman. Oh, we want Barbara Justice there too, won't we? Yeah, we'll work on it. But you believe that AIDS exists when AIDS does not exist. There is no such thing as AIDS. It's a lie that you have swallowed wholeheartedly. This AIDS conference is coming up now, and there are going to be people there that will be proponents of the fact that AIDS does exist, and there are those of us who will tell you that AIDS is a figment of your imagination. It is a disease of the media, essentially, because you believed it. It's a rampant blowing, festering disease of the media. Now understand very carefully. AIDS, as you will learn, AIDS means acquired immune deficiency syndrome. That's what they tell you. But if you look at the word broken down into their fragmented parts, and you know Western science always likes to fragment shit, acquired means something you get. Immune means you can't get it. Deficiency means you don't have it. And syndrome means you just might get it because it keeps coming up and then it don't become... What the fuck are we talking about?
Wow.
It's double speak.
Wow.
It's the double speak coming at you so that it will infect you with double think. And you don't understand how your mind is being played by the wordology, or what I call the medicalese of the Church of Medical Science. You have to be very cautious at what doctors are telling you, because they constitute a priesthood as well. This is a Bible for you to believe that a God is coming down to rescue you. If you go into the medical schools, that too is a church to tell you that God's servants are here to save your life. Because everything in medicine is based on a belief structure. They operate within a very, very limited vacuum of rules and regulations that have nothing to do with life. But I will say this to you, ladies and gentlemen, that because of the fact that I did come somewhat late, forgive me again on that, I intend to pick up on the second half of Exodus while putting you into the next half of whatever book that we're going to study on the next lecture series. But I know I've given you enough basically for you to go into what it is that's being said here on this video. And again, my beloved brothers who are here taking part in this, these brothers here, first of all, you got to give hands to these brothers who's putting it on. Let's hear it for Grass Steve.
Clapping. People. We've been led astray as sheep. We are nothing but cattle to these people, being corralled down, being corralled around as is. But we as the people make the world go round.
A broken school funding law is making us choose, but the choice is clear on HISD. Proposition 1. Voting for Prop 1 keeps us in charge, not Austin politicians. Protecting Houston's schools and taxpayers. Voting against Prop 1 permanently transfers billions in tax collections from Houston's most valuable buildings to other school districts, putting our schools at risk and increasing our property taxes. On May 6th, put kids first. Protect your wallet. Vote yes on Proposition 1.
Metaphysics. I can decipher what they have gathered together by their observations, and then based on my expertise of studying the unseen realm and all the laws that govern the unseen realm, I can speak to you about how I have, through what I know, interpreted the data. Well, first and foremost, the science of genetics is another form of fragmentation of the study of the whole biospiritual body that we call the human being. More and more, as we advance in the study of man, humanity, we begin to fraction and fragment the physical temple into ever more microscopic venues. And we have come now to the phase of knowledge where man is now seen as an atomic structure created or formed into a molecular structure, which in turn is formed into a cellular structure, and from that cellular structure comes out into the different forms of intelligence that we see walking the planet from the DNA.
Merriweather Security Consulting. How can I help?
All of the different
Helicopter support unit
quote-unquote discoveries that we're getting today is based upon the perception that present man has of himself, or the present church or religious venue of science. Science is a form of religion. Just like politics is a form of religion. Religion is a form of religious thinking. It is the marginalization of thought or certain abstracts into a formula. And then that formula is meshed over, and you take a piece, I'll take a piece, and everybody has a little piece, and they'll see what they can extract or mold out of that little piece. Genetics is simply one of the branches of the mold that we're studying. And it's interesting that the more we find out genetically about ourselves, the more we get to that little black box, which no one seems to want to speak about except us, and that is melanin. We speak about DNA because DNA is almost neutral in its context. Everything that has a biological basis has DNA. So does rocks, dirt, everything has some form of DNA structure because it is part and parcel of a living, breathing, sentient, conscious planet. So there is no part of what we live on or what we participate in that is not conscious. Not only of itself, but as itself. So when Brother brought this particular information to us, what happened is that every time there is a new breakthrough in science, and I know that there are other metaphysicians and other spiritual people who know what I'm speaking about, that every time someone comes to us with something new that science has discovered, the occultist, the metaphysician, the one who studies the spirit, already knows what that formula is. We just have not yet interpreted the language that they've used to describe what they've discovered. But once we get a chance to look at it for a while, we know, based upon the science of metaphysics and the study of the occult realms that our ancestors have studied, we know what they are touching upon and what they are looking through. So he may hide behind his codes, which probably, if you punch in the letters DNA, you probably get right to him. You have to see that his constant fractionalizing of life is based upon the way that he sees through the prism of his reality. He cannot see or abstractly understand and understand whole beings and whole things. The Caucasoid has a frame of reference that cannot see the wholeness of a thing. He may be able to describe the surface of it, but his ability to interface with that thing that he is observing, he does not have the mechanism, the crystalline mechanism necessary for him to access that. Or there are many who have crossed that line by studying ardently and religiously, quote unquote, and fervently with the dark-skinned masters, but they still do not engender the immediacy of the spirit. They have to describe it in abstract forms through their formulas and what they believe they see as we consciously move through ever-evolving stages in the spirit. So every time the spirit becomes more and more evident within each of us, he discovers a little something different or more about himself. But you see, we've already put that into capsulized form as peoples of color around the world through the way we dance, through the way we sing, through the instruments that we create in order to interface with that sound, light, frequency, and vibration that we call the Spirit of God. And I'm doing all of this before we condense into the particulars, because once we do the particulars, we're getting into the white frame of reference. And what I want to do now is to set the groundwork for how we must see and interface with the information. We as metaphysicians and occultists know that every time science discovers something, we know that it's them catching up to the metaphysician, catching up to the spiritualist, catching up to the occultist. There is nothing that he will ever discover that is not already known by the very few peoples who still retain the ancient wisdom knowledge, the ancient wisdom sciences, the mystery science that they talked about in ancient Kemet, the shamanic sciences that they talk about amongst the indigenous people. We already know this. But it is necessary because our children are caught up in this paradigm where everything needs to be fractionalized, torn apart, eviscerated, thrown up into pieces, ripped apart, so that you can see how the little pieces work. That's fine. We'll do that. But we must never lose sight of the fact that with every discovery in his own fragmented way of thinking, we must take that discovery and put it back into the piece so that we see how the whole operates. In that way, we won't end up making machines that tear down whole forests, that rip up the skies and the water. Because he is so estranged from the living beingness of this planet, he can, without any conscience, without any responsibility, do what he's doing to the planet. Because this is the way he sees science. He sees what life is. It's just things for him to rip up and study. Consequences be damned. They'll come later. So I must place into the records that his ever deeper incursion into the study of DNA is his ever deeper incursion into the study of dark matter consciousness, which is the study of melanin. Because melanin is the intelligence that makes the spirit real to us. It is the aspect of spirit that weaves the intent and the will of the Creator into something that we can perceive, something that we interface with through time and space, something that we could say, this is this and that is that. It gives us depth. It gives us perception. Melanin differentiates the one spirit into the many things that we witness as reality. So the study of DNA and the study of genius is the study of melanin, of which the first peoples of the planet have the abundance of. You see, when they mined us, when they stole us, when they captured us, when they came over and they tore up our ancestry and destroyed us, they knew they were doing the same thing that their scientists were doing. Ripping up the melanin, tearing it apart, taking away its homogeneity, its oneness, and its unified form of the world, and fragmenting it into all these different tribal mentalities that separate us one from the other, have us fighting one another, just like he's been doing. So he's ripped up not only earth and from our places where we were indigenous to, he's ripped up our consciousness. He's torn melanin into shreds. He, towards the consciousness, the creative consciousness, he tears that up with the food that we eat, the juices, the kinds of things he puts into our community. The air we breathe with the chemtrails that you see on a clear day, where clouds that don't look like clouds are up above, with planes spewing poisons like barium and aluminum and genetic material that are supposed to be entrained within your lung tissue to change and mutate you. He is destroying the ability of your melanin to interface with the dark matter consciousness called Eta Carina that is heading in this direction as we speak today. The black God or the dark God that was talked about in Amos in your Bible. Because they said God is not the light, God is the darkness. They said the darkness was existence, and from the darkness came the light. Well, the darkness is returning, and it's making all the scientists afraid because it's about to give forth with a burst of light. Phosphine genius is about to burst forward. And they say that once it happens, the skies of our solar system, our galaxy, will not see any blackness for a period of 7 days. Now, these are written in the holy books. But these books were not holy books for us to bow down and worship to. These books were there for us to study as books of science set down by our ancestors, who spoke about melanin in the Bible, or what became the Bible that we read today, what became the Quran we read today, the Sefer Yetzirah, the Kabbalah. All of these different books that we read today have to do with the return of the darkness, which is the eternal womb, the triple black mother. And right now, it's returning. together certain things, and which is what I've done. When you asked me what it is that you wanted to speak about the 6-strand DNA
series.
The series, the six-strand DNA, the 6 there, I want to explain what that means. And the 9-strand DNA series, that has metaphysical ramifications way beyond what their science is revealing to them, or what their own contained mentality will allow them to understand. And this is where the metaphysician has to step in. And this is why Dr. Oyibo is not only so essential to the next phase of consciousness on this planet, but why he is feared by the present structure, this present church of Western scientific thought. So in listening to what it is that you wanted to speak about and hear is global distribution of the DNA series. This is nothing new. This was already known by most of the scientists, because there are books written by the early medical scientists who went to study African peoples, who went to study indigenous peoples to the lands south of the equator, where the people are darker and more richly melanated. And they wrote a series of medical books attesting to the difference between melanated peoples and white peoples, to the point where their apothecaries and their pharmacies created drugs differently because they had a specifically specialized effect on melanated peoples as opposed to white peoples. For instance, white peoples have more metal in their medicines than black people can tolerate. So they made most of their medicines so that they could not interface. They had to put more metal into them because the Caucasoid is so deficient of iron.
That's why.
Whereas peoples of color have a rich uplaying of dark iron. That's why you get your dark, black, rich, melanated color, is because of the fact that your face and your body has laid up iron in it. But to see, the problem is you are like an earth without the plants and the soil and the flowers that grow from it. In other words, back in the days, when you had a dark, rich, black earth color, you gave off a greenish, bluish hue. Like you can go today to Senegal and watch those brothers and sisters stand in that sun, and they are so black they shine blue.
That's true.
But people don't know what the secret to that kind of melanin means. And it means that there are times when our people, moving through consciousness as the true earth creatures, that at times when we were in the sun, or when we would think a certain emotional thought, one of the chakras would tell us immediately where your thoughts were focused, and you would vibrate that particular color in accordance with your emotions. That's because you were in tune, and your melanin was not disjointed and fragmented. It was connected directly to the interlacing conduits that connected directly to your nervous system. And that nervous system, through its own conduits, connected directly to the etheric body that you had, which is called the breath form, which you commonly call the soul. So your soul, through the nerve estuaries and the electromagnetic wiring in your body, connected you directly to your skin. And the soul had its outward representation in the way that the molecules and the atoms formed you to imitate the triple blackness, because from the blackness came the light, but in order for the light to know itself, it had to be housed back in the blackness. You see. So what happens now, we don't understand what color is. We don't understand the science of melanin, what I call dark matter consciousness. And in thus doing it, we do things unconsciously in the spirit. That's why religion is such a, how do I say this? Such a deep intoxicating and addicting substance to dark folks.
Bunch of bullshit.
That is the number one place where they can defer and deter the consciousness of black people by setting up a structure to intercept the true spirit. And the one structure that intercepts the true spirit is religion. The dogma of religion are to take us away from actually interfacing with the true voice of God that will tell you the name of the Creator, because your DNA is linked to your melanin, and your melanin to the pigments on your skin, and that's how you had all these different names for God. Not Jesus. You didn't have these names like Allah. You didn't have all these names. These names came and were fostered upon you.
Yep.
Because you had names like Unkulunkulu.
Yeah.
That was the sound of the cosmic resonance of the drums. And the way Most High spoke to you, so you spoke back the name that was given to you directly. You didn't need a second-hand interpreter to give you a name for God. God already gave you its name wherever you were on the planet, because the name that you called God where you were on this planet was the harmonic frequency necessary to keep the balance of the overall planet in place. So when this Caucasoid came around and began ripping up all of your religious sounds and your music and the way you spoke directly to the Creator, it ripped up and tore apart the planet so much now that it begins to wobble. The planet itself today wobbles because every one of us is calling out somebody named Jesus who never existed.
Never existed. That's correct.
So your melanin can be used to keep you in the prison because it's easily infected with illusion. And that's why we must know ourselves from inside out. And if this is a chance for me to speak more deeply upon what it is we need to do, you know I'm going to actually do my best to be here to speak on that.
Love you.
Now, I need to read into the record for everyone some things that I put down very quickly for us to understand or understand around what this DNA situation is and what this whole concentration on genetics and, you know, what's going on with the genetics of disease, and we found a gene for cancer and a gene for leukemia and a gene for that. You can go down to Woolworths and find genes. There's genes in everything biological. But he needs to do that. He needs to think that he is in control. Because he is going to poison you with what he finds. He can't do anything good with what he finds. He needs to keep poisoning you because by your suffering and pathology he lives. Know that the medical system does not exist by your health. It exists based on you being maintained within a pool of pathology.
That's correct.
So his control, his science is to find out what may harm you so that he may stay in control. There is no upliftment in his science because he has completely extricated the principle of the deity of God within all of his science. You cannot find deity in any of his sciences. Therefore, it has to be satanic. So the study of genetics, the study of medicine, the study of all of the biologies that he has is a satanic study because he does not believe that a divine intelligence operates all things.
Now, if I may ask you a question, if you would prefer this to go completely and I interject questions on the end, I'll try to do that.
Good, but let me put this down because then the questions may have been answered by what I have put down here for you. So let me just get some rudimentary things down. Simply put, DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, makes RNA, ribonucleic acids, which in turn, ribonucleic acids makes proteins. Everybody knows what a protein kind of is. Proteins allow things that are called amino acids to be registered messengers. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm talking about when it comes down to, say, for instance, to the DNA helix. And we'll deal with the DNA helix like this, because this is the simplest waveform that we can see. This is not, let me just say this first. DNA is not what you think it is. This is simply an abstract model by what science has done to simplify what it is. Okay, that's all it is. So when they show you this fancy model with all these little things all over it, that's a clinical model, because they don't all look like this. DNA is simply a wave energy pattern crystallized into a gelatinous mold. Okay? And the reason why it seems like this is because we're stuck. And I'm going to get into that. So DNA makes RNA, RNA makes proteins, and proteins allow the amino acids to be the registered messengers. Each amino acid is different and thus has a different geometric shape specific to its duty. So amino acids are little messengers that attach themselves along the DNA. And I'm doing it extremely simplistic, because if you get in contact with this guy, he will start getting into the church of his own scientific churches. Huge amount of gobbledygook that simply doesn't do anything, because it's their own language. It's their own way of estranging you from what's going on inside of you. So, each amino is a microprocessor of light signature frequencies. Okay? So, when you eat, or when you breathe in, or when you drink water, or when you take in anything that's real food, the breaking down of substances, especially the stuff that you breathe, essentially comes from what your environment gives to you in the form of the breath. So as you breathe in, or as you eat in, certain things become digested, not only in the lungs, but in the stomach and everywhere around you. Even knowledge and the sitting and learning is a form of digestion, which creates a certain type of etheric amino acid that is not yet detected by them.
We hope you're very happy
Okay,
here.
so I already jumped you forward maybe 10 years to what they're going to discover somewhere down the line. But when you breathe in, your alveoli in your lungs acts as condensers and compressors of cosmic solar material that is in the air that you breathe. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's in the air. How can I going to see it? Well, you can tell that air is a form of atmosphere, or almost like a watery kind of atmosphere. If you would put your hand outside a car, for instance, and you feel that resistance as you're moving through it, and you can do this, you feel it. There's something actually feeling against my hand. Well, you're like a fish in a bowl, but you are in a more refined atmosphere. You see, so in this atmosphere is a whole other universe. You're living in a terrarium, an open terrarium or open aquarium, with a kind of water that's so refined that this is the way that you breathe. Like the fish breathes, the deeper and more condensed form of this same thing. You see, so when you breathe in what are called etheric materials, solar materials that condense to become your etheric amino acids. But the food you eat is a denser form of the same thing. So as you break down food that essentially has signatures within them. The enzymes, the proteins, and the fats, and all the different types of glycerides, whatever it is that you have inside of that food, begins to break down to make certain proteins and sugars that begin to attach themselves along the DNA. Now, this DNA has these little signatures here because through your body every day, there are waveforms, light waveforms, that are constantly bombarding through your body, more refined, giving you information. And that information that's coming from the outside in the form of light and in the form of your emotions and the form of your thought processes and the form of the electrical magnetic energies in your nerves are passing through the DNA as well. Okay? Now, each amino is a microprocessor of light signature frequencies. It's an antenna for the reception of light codes. Now let me be very clear about that. Light codes are essentially coming from the sun, but it's also coming from all of what you call stars. Coming from constellations, the 12, of course, you know, being the zodiac. Each zodiac has a specific space wherein this world spins. There are 12 of them around us, and we're inside of that. And everywhere we go, they are positioned in different areas as we travel around this and the sun itself. So we're inside this light fixture. Just like this light is beaming on me, that would be Aquarius. One behind me would be Leo, or all of these. So we're inside of these 12 light fixtures. And behind them, there are 12 or 200 more. So we're getting all these refined form of lights. These coming together and interfacing with one another constitute the light codes that hit us finally. Okay? And as the light is hitting us, we're breathing in the residuals of those light particles that are given off. And we're getting information messages. So, these proteins and these amino acids are micro chakras, and I'll explain all of that, all connected to the 7 primary chakras. Each microprocessor amino has a code combination. Each has a 3-letter code. So you can imagine now that the microprocessor aminos has a 3-letter code. And we're going to get into showing you how. Why don't you just cut this part right off? A 3-letter code. These are chemical codes used to articulate different combinations of carbon, melanin, hydrogen, melanin, oxygen, melanin, and nitrogen, melanin, that they collectively go into the constitution of aminos created to receive specific light code instructions. There are 20 known light code antenna processors presently identified by Western medical science. 20 known antenna that define the biocosmic temple we call the human body. The human genetic code is comprised of 64 possible code variations, what they call codons. Now, if you know anything about the ancient I Ching, what they call the ancient Chinese way of dealing with reading, I, and then it's called I and then CHING, there are 64 different combinations that you could throw of the coins that they give to you. And those 64 combinations of 3 are directly linked to how the code. So if you know how to do I Ching, you can judge what is going on in the human condition based upon your sympathy with the energies of the planet. You can throw those I Ching coins, 4 I Ching coins or the 3 I Ching coins, depending on what system you use. You can throw those I Ching coins and read what's happening to you and interface, because all 64 possibilities have a code next to them that our ancient ancestors wrote down. Okay? And they're linked to the so-called DNA. Now, the human genetic code is comprised of 64 possible code variations. It is these 64 variations that represent the limit or the wall of our perception for Western science. And this 64 code variations that I explained is to the Western science a complete mystery. There is nothing beyond it, because the present perception of humanity and science cannot go beyond the 64 coded wall. It's like 64 bricks to this particular wall that they cannot see beyond. The mystery is that there are 64 possibilities, but only 20 light code antenna keys turned on and are in working order. So, if we know that there are only 20 possible variations within the chemical codes for aminos, and there are 64 possible code variations, it means that 44 code variations that would then link us up to a higher reality within ourselves are missing. Now, here's this man coming along to say that in the southern regions of Africa, below the equator, right now, at this point, there are evidences of people that are supposed to be primitive. Primitive meaning first, but to them, primitive meaning idiotic and savage. But not understanding that these people hold on to the primary code keys that humanity had when they first fell out of spirit. If they found 9, understand that there are 3 that's only missing from them and 6 missing from them. Because the first stages of being able to climb out of the present perceptual paradigm is to link up to the 12 DNA series. He only got to 9. And we're going to explain what that means. So here we have a problem with the amino sequence. Let's just use one amino acid, the amino acid leucine. L-E-U-C-I-N-E. Now, the amino acid leucine reveals something very deeply in us. I mean, it shows something that they have found out in us. And it shows something that we as metaphysicians have been trying to tell people for a long time, the occultists, the shamans, we tell people, we are locked down. We can't see beyond the present perception because we have refused to release it. And religion is that lock, because it does not explain the spirit. It tells you to believe. But when you believe, it means that you have surrendered your critical thinking and your reasoning mind to accept something based upon what somebody else has said, not first-hand experience. Here's the problem. This society, Western society, is not based in first-hand experiences. Western society is based on vicarious experiences, which means we go to movies, TVs, we go to different shows to see other people enjoy first-hand experiences with us.
That's true.
So a second-hand experience does not allow for certain parts of our bodies to develop. It does not allow for certain consciousness, cellular consciousness to be awakened. Because when you take away first-hand experience, you take away the soul's ability to interface with the moment on an organic level, and thus traps the spirit or the soul in a paradigm always looking for itself, which is a first-hand experience with itself. So now you have a creature who is living completely by vicarious experiences. Okay, go to church, come to the preacher will strike up the band's music tells you sing these songs trigger a vicarious experience in you. You now, based on the programming, are told that Jesus is doing that to you, but you're doing it to yourself. And you've accepted the programming that somebody is doing this for you. I'm feeling Jesus because why? The preacher says that feeling that you're feeling while you're in this place is Jesus. But you don't understand that he is using your own spirituality, your own inheritance of the spirit.
That's correct.
And spending your inheritance by keeping you high on ignorance.
Okay.
So understand now that what I'm trying to say is that at this present time, the present amino acid structure that science is studying is simply based upon a vehicle that is stuck in its own ignorance. As soon as you awaken this vehicle, this entity creature, all of these codes will change. In the twinkling of an eye, didn't the Bible say? But you can't do that if you keep the eyes blind and the twinkle out of them.
That's right.
Yes.
See? And the knowledge of oneself puts the twinkle back into one's eyes. But understand this. Now, the amino leucine looks like this. UUA. These are the way that they are set up in sequence. UUA, UUG, and these are the way the proteins are set up. The protein aminos are set up. CUU, CUC, CUA, and CUG. Now, if you're looking at it, we have 6 completely different chemical combinations, but they all still add up. These 6 different completely chemical combinations. These are 6 completely different chemical combinations for amino acids, but they all add up to leucine. Which means, and this is happening throughout the whole DNA helix, which means that humanity is stuck or locked down in a consciousness of redundancy. The consciousness redundancy that we are presently locked down in means that we can't see to the next phase of our development in the journey of life. And what has happened for the last 2,000 years is that a force has been placed upon us, has been imposed upon us. We have been forced into this reality to believe something that you don't understand. And you know what Stevie said? If you believe in things you don't understand, you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. And what is religion but superstition? Understand and understand that our redundancy, the reason why we are continuing to be at this pace, constantly suffering as peoples of color, is because we have played into the illusion of ourselves. We have adopted an alien perception of reality. We act to give life to this corpse, this Frankenstein that was created on the slab. You know what happened when Frankenstein was awoken. Our electricity, our life force gives life to this Frankenstein monster. And what happened when it got up? It started tearing up the village. So it's our focus of attention to the church, to the politics, to the education system. Those are all the limbs of the Frankenstein monster. The more we give our children over to that, the more energy we give to the Frankenstein monster, and then we turn around and wonder what's happening to our village. Because the children you send into that beast, into that laboratory they call the classroom, comes back as the Frankenstein monster. That's not your child anymore. It's being genetically changed, altered in consciousness. So the monster lives. And the redundancy continues. And you get another a newspaper where another brother is shot. Another sister is raped. Another child is abandoned. How much longer is this thing going to go on? As long as we continue to think in redundancy, this is continue to happen. And we have now become addicted to our own comfort. Miserable as we are, we're still addicted to this semi-comfort that we call reality. If you want to truly change, you have to suffer. Period. If you pull away your electricity and say, I'm not using electricity anymore. If you say, I'm not going down to the Piggly Wiggly, I'm not going down to the A&S, I'm not going down to any of these things that feed this Frankenstein, you watch this thing come crumbling down like a house of cards. But you got to remember that your Negro preacher, your Negro politician, your Negro educator is there constantly wanting to go and pay homage to the monster, because that's who he's plugged into. I didn't care that Sharpton was speaking at some Democratic National Convention. That ain't gonna change Harlem. Harlem is dying. Yes. Rangel gave that away.
Yes, he did.
That's your other Negro politician. They're there to serve the illusion, to serve Dr. Frankenstein. And it's your DNA that's being perverted every day by the way that they're putting their foods in, converting the foods and perverting the foods, and you go in there and eating anything and everything that comes into your community. And eating is a form of communication. Know that. I spoke about that in my nanogenetic mind control. That when you change the genetics of the food, you teach the genetics of the human being. Because when the human being consumes that food, it begins to pervert the genetics. So you can genetically mind control somebody without lifting a finger, by simply getting them to eat the food that you're perverting. And your body no longer is going to be the same. The legacy that you have from your genetics, your sperm and your egg, will no longer be the same genetics passed on to that child. And that's why you have so many faggots and homosexuals and lesbians running around today. I know you're mad at me for what I'm saying, but somebody's got to say it. At the end of every civilization, there's one thing common to all of them. Greece, Sumer, Kemet, all of them fell just when homosexuality began to rise. Go back to all of your histories and see if I'm lying. And that's based on perverted genetics. So understand and understand that what we're doing right here is not just floating off the top and putting up theories or what do you call it. This is a science that they will never teach in school. They'll never teach the young genetic student. Why is there such a redundancy just to one amino acid? Because the redundancy is the effort of the body to find an escape route out of the present condition that it's in. Maybe this combination might do it. No, you did something here to stop this from converting out of or evolving out of. So then it created this one. And then this one. All of it indications of the body trying to find a way out of it because as a byproduct of life, it is in motion constantly. You stop it with emotion. The one thing about science that they teach you is that science and life and all that lives, all that is science is about movement and motion. And when you stop motion, you stop life. The motion is also seen in your thinking process. Thought creates motion because every time you think, you create an atom. Every time you think, you create an atom. See, they don't give you that in school because they, as a child of the Creator, it means that you are a creator. And as a creator, the first thing created, as you will see by that genius, Dr. Oyibo, was the atom. And study thyself. Every morning you wake up, look in the mirror, and what do you see teaching you? Because the one looking in the mirror is the student. The teacher is the reflection. And that's the secret behind how the Creator created. You see, the Creator is the student. And you, by your actions and the things that you do every day, what you perceive and receive by experience, the Creator receives in turn. So you have a job to do. You are the teacher of the Creator. And some people say, well, how can you blaspheme? We are here to serve the Creator. No. The Creator serves us so that we may be better and better so that it may be served in return.
Talking about, baby.
It can't know a damn thing if it's pushing you down or telling you you're damned forever in hell. Oh shit, I might as well just go ahead. You allow me to do this. If I can do everything that I want to do, why not do everything I want to do? Now you're going to damn me for it? That's the myopic thinking of a prison planet mentality. And that's why our DNA is so frustrated at this time. Now, this night of frustration is the present harmonic field that tracks the planetary intelligence of man so that he cannot get behind or beyond the present sevenfold nature of cycles and changes on this planet. Man is chained through his inactive DNA to Earth's geometric cycles. Let me say that again. Man is chained to his DNA through the inactive cycles. That's right. To his inactive DNA. In other words, the DNA that is not alive out of the 6 to the 9. That DNA represents what keeps him entropically chained to the physical planet and to this reality. That's why they call it gravity. Why do they call it gravity? Because it's essentially a grave. That's what it does. It pulls you in. Life is entropic in its nature, but the spark of the Creator is what moves it forward. So man is chained through his inactive DNA to Earth's geometric magnetic cycles. There are 7 days for quote-unquote creation, 7 years to the age of reason, 7 chakras, 7-year cycles for age progression of the cell, 7 seconds, 7 milliseconds, 7 nanoseconds before the phosphine explosions occur toward the inner dimensions of the mind. In other words, at that point where you begin to know yourself, as you raise the 7th chakra, It goes into seconds, then nanoseconds, as you plunge deeper into the well that you represent, that consciousness that you call the Creator. This night of frustration is a point in human consciousness evolution where the physical ordering of the mind must come to the realization that even star evolution does not share any singular space and time indefinitely. In other words, what we're looking at as the stars above us at this time, what we're seeing presently is not and will not remain like that forever. Even the stars are developing and evolving because they are conscious as themselves. You see, the earth is conscious as itself. It knows itself as water. It knows itself as earth. It knows itself as fire. It knows itself as atmosphere. But you see, it does not become conscious of itself until man walks upon it. You see what I'm saying? You can't, man, don't get me wrong, sisters, but man is mother, father, son. Mother, father, son, in the ancient Hebrew, which is Iu. Hebrew came from this word, Iu, which is the name of an African god. And the name of the people were the Ius. So the Hebrew himself, Hebrews, I don't call it the Hebrew language or, the fire letters that they have. That's not the Hebrew language. That Hebrew language, or the fire letters, come from the hieroglyphics of light. See? This is where it came from. So light creates fire. Fire is a condensed value of light. It is a conditioned value of light. All right? And fire being a conditioned value of light would have to extrapolate from light. So the first languaging system were hieroglyphic pictographs that were beamed in the form of light codes that we then translated into what you see as the hieroglyphics, or what I call the Medu Neter. So the Medu Neter were the first, which means that's the light language. But I call the Hebrew language the Ku Medu, which is the fire language. Because all of the Hebrew languages are actually the representation of flames. And they're different, if you look at them. They're the representation of fire. All of them. It's all about the way fire dances. So the flame language, Kumadu, is what we are studying now in this particular part of what we're dealing with as a reality. Now, I don't know if I was going to show you something again. I always get caught up because there's so much to teach and to say before we can get to the questions. I want to make sure I get all of this down so that we have something to work with. Well, let me just put this down. The human body has 12 meridians. We'll come back to that. The earth has 12 meridians. All are connected to the 12 meridians, light beams of the star constellations, the 12 star constellations called the zodiac. All of the 12 star constellations, all of the 12 meridians of the earth and the 12 meridians of humanity are interconnected to form new thresholds of awareness. That means how they interplay one with the other can provide the doorway for humanity to come out of the present perception and into another reality. Their interplay can be seen in the form of helical energy patterns that match the energy patterns of our DNA. In other words, the way that the meridians of the earth, the meridians of our patterns of our bodies, and the meridian patterns and the thresholds of the constellations all come together to create helical energies that match exactly the helical patterns that are seen within your DNA, actually, the DNA. The human vehicle has 12 awareness meridians of light, all connected to the archetypal seed cell. Now this is the secret. And this is what they'll never teach you. The human vehicle has 12 awareness meridians. That's what the acupuncturist is moving when they stick the needles into you to move the energies around. These 12 meridians, awareness meridians of light, are connected to the archetypal seed cell located in the pineal, or the first light, first eye. Not the third eye, but the first eye. They want you to believe it's the third eye because they got you believing that these two are the real eyes. These two eyes are the eyes simply to diffract light wave patterns into forms of solidity so that you can perceive a reality. But the first eye sees beyond that to the true nature of all physical things. So it would have to be the first eye because that's where you came from. So the primary one eye, which sits on top of your dollar bill pyramid, showing you what it is that they're telling you what the real deal is, that first eye, the one that they tried to atrophy with the new hamburgers that they're coming out with the new drinks that they're coming out with all the different things and the drugs they put into your medicines. All of this is to shut down the activity of that first eye and to impede the flow of all 12 of your meridians so that you don't open up that first eye. So now, this particular first eye, inside what I call the seed cell within that first eye, that seed crystalline cell is made up of a crystalline lattice. In other words, if you look at a crystal, you see it has a lattice. And that lattice is usually in 6 forms, in 6 points. All organic crystals, real crystals, have 6-point lattices. That's because that's the way the light wave meridians of the planet shapes them in order to translate information from the ground to the people above. Now we're mining them out of the ground, which is why people are getting more and more stupid. They get all this going on there, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to put it back into the earth so that it vibrates properly, so you can, when you're wearing it, you're in phase with the earth. You're interfaced with the earth. But they're mining it out now, and inside of all of these crystals are locked the thought engrams of previous civilizations that lived upon the land where it was mined. And you can put this into places, you could go into meditation with these and go right into contact with them. Because their energy signature still surrounds this planet. And that's what the white boy is trying to tune into. But see, he's over there trying to steal Native American thought and Native American organic interface rituals and spend $10,000 to get some kind of classification that, oh, now I'm a shaman. No, you're not a shaman. You're a little perpetrator. You're a little kindergarten boy dressed up. And you will never be able to take the true meanings and qualify them and interface with the relativity that they represent. You may have a quantum bit of it that you're playing around with, like a toy. You may be able to very articulately see what you say and write it down for us to interface through words, but you can never do it. You can never do it. Albeit. So as I go on very quickly, the Earth's planetary membrane, what is called the ionosphere, troposphere, stratosphere, etc., or the biocomputer, has 12 vibrating light-focused channels. Both channels are used to reprogram the human molecular atomic structure and act as key points for the shift in particle or quantum perception, which is the doorway to the next level of biospiritual evolution. These 12 awareness meridians within the human body temple are synchronized through the 12 planetary meridians with the 12 zodiac portals, through the 6 double helix of 12-strand spiritual ladder, or the 12-strand DNA. Now, what does that mean? We're going to get right to it. It is 3 by 3 by 3, which is what we're talking about, the 6 double helix, 3 by 3 by 3, and the 3, 6, 9, 3 4s are 12. There are body meridians. There's 12 body meridians, which means 12 equaling 3. There are 12 planetary meridians, again 12 equals 3. And there are 12 signs of the zodiac, which means 12 equals 3. That means 3, 3, 3. It means 9, which comes up to the vibratory number of 9, which is why that is the last number that you can that can be formed out of the one linear first equation. The circle with the dot. You can only come back to 9. There's nothing else. After 9 is 10, and that's just a repeat of 1. It's the multiples that create from it. So I'm just kind of throwing this out there very quickly. This white boy, I forgot his name, went and studied again, they go into their laboratories, and he studied the DNA, which was very interesting what he studied. He studied the DNA and found out that emotion triggered certain DNA on the light code sites. So, let me just put this down one time to show you what he found out, which is very interesting because it just substantiates our ancestors. This is DNA, for instance. Okay, we're all okay. We're on the same page. We'll say this is DNA. Now, let's just, for simplistic sake, let's just put this way. Okay, let's just do this. On this DNA, we have a series of amino acid proteins. And again, these little amino acid proteins have different little shapes. You know, one may have bunny ears, another one may have little arms. You know, they have little shapes, little crystalline shapes that are their own. But they are based upon the temperaments that you share right now. So you create the proteins and the amino acids based upon the mentality that you carry. So what they do to our children is to create certain conditions whereby in the education system and in the idiot media system and in the entertainment system, certain crystalline structures are formed along their DNA patterns. By the way the music is played, the kind of sounds that come out of their music that shatters these crystals once those sound waves pass through them. Okay? Now, we say that we have a kind of light code sequencing site of an emotion. When an emotion happens, depending on the type of emotion you have, it will dictate how many of these aminos are touched. And thus, when the wave signature of the DNA of the emotion touches certain amino acids along the site of the DNA, it teaches the DNA what that emotion is supposed to do and how that emotion is supposed to translate as the physical body. So, if the emotion, they found out in the laboratory that if the emotion is made up of fear, and look what's happening today. They find out that if the emotion is made up of fear, the wave signature is very broad and hardly touches any of the crystals, of the amino acid crystals. But if the waveform is energized through an empathetic energy that they call love, the waveform is so dense that it touches damn near every one of the crystals along the DNA strand, which then translates to an evolving being, because along this waveband signature, which is more densely collected, you have more information. Thus, more information is passed on to the DNA. And when the DNA has more information, that person is now tapping into the very genius that he is trying to seek. Now, what has differentiated these people? 9 times out of 10, these people ain't educated. And the people that they went to find the samples from ain't yet hooked up into Western civilization. Or if they are so tuned still into the talking of their own ancestral gods, eating their own ancestral food, and have not yet undergone the serious stress, or have learned to bypass the stress and to take on a whole other way of being to survive. But in them is contained the treasury. This is the Fort Knox of the human genome system, according to him. So now he has to find out what is it that these people have that we Caucasoids don't have. There it is. And you will see now that coming out of Europe, there are going to be new potions and pills to turn white people black. It's getting ready to happen. You're going to watch it. They already got them. In fact, there was a movie out called Black Like Me. And they had an experimental pill that Richard Whitmark used. Not Richard Whitmark. What was his name? No, it wasn't Richard Whitmark. Richard Whitmark was that skinny dude. It's the other round white boy who played it.
Yeah, with the gray eye.
William Bendix or something like that. You know who I'm talking about, right? Heavy set dude. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of it.
He took a drug called Sorolin that turned him dark and black. And they're getting ready to put that back on the market for white folks because the sun getting ready to get ugly on white folks. And dark folks who eat white people food. Watch. The melanin is going to be disjointed and destructive to you if we don't come back into our collective thinking patterns.
That's a beautiful thing you said. Great. Will, even taking that pill, will it affect the chemical combinations? And that's the main thing, which the UUA, the UUG, the CUU, all of it, and the last one, the CUG. With that pill that they get, their combination still won't be as bad, I don't think.
Well, see, what you're hitting it on the point right now. All he can do is drug himself into some kind of similarity.
Yes.
See, he can't be it. He can only be similar to it. He has to flow back into the dark mother consciousness, which is why you see him paired with all these black women on TV.
Now that DNA, which is the deoxynucleic acid.
Yeah, deoxyribonucleic acid, yes.
Will it affect us in some way, or could we tap into this thing more?
Well, what they have found is that the bloodstream of the black man and the black woman has incredible variations and differences than the white man. First of all, it's thicker. And it has a lot more red corpuscles, red blood cells, which means that we are older by means of us having more generated cycles of incarnation. You see, the more denser your bloodstream and the more denser your red blood cell or your cellular network, the older you are in consciousness.
Well, you just answered something. I was going to the doctor for, they would give me hydroxyurea. My blood cells are very, very rich, very rich. And they give me the hydroxyurea to
thin it.
To thin it.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring it down.
Right.
Now, what is that? Detrimental?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, because you see, what you've done now is you thinned the messengers to your melanin on your skin.
Wow.
And what's happening is you thin the oxygen necessary to keep that melanin alive.
Wow.
And what's happening is the foods that you're eating is causing your melanin, your blood, to become mucosized, which causes a stagnation in it, which then further complicates it for dark folks. And it eats up your copper, which causes problems in your heart. You see what I'm saying? We have a whole other kind of... Now, me, I'm mixed. I got the damn Spaniards, you know, and what do you call them, French. Went down and messed with my Caribbean ancestry down there. So I got the mixture of them. And so what happens is you have to be very, very careful. You have to be mindful of the fact that anytime you take white folks' drugs, it's going to affect you deleteriously, where it'll probably be all right for them because they need that. See, now I don't mind people who are on the black dark folks who are on the path to take the herbs first before they get off of herbs, because a herb is another form of drug. And our ancestors, until we learned that our ancestors only used the herb because it was a time of great stress and cataclysm. And we used it as a way to ameliorate pain and suffering. But we never used the herb itself. That's something over the last, say, 15,000, 20,000 years. That's when we started using it, because the earth was wobbling all around and the temperature was crazy. Everything was nuts, you see. And so we fell from that pristine time when the earth was spinning at the perfect centrifugal force that created a certain type of climate that was perfect. We didn't even need clothes. There was no modesty. We got modesty because we got crazy. We just listened to this white man and said, "You naked." What do you mean naked? What's that? I got what I came here with. You see. But of course, during the time that we had to protect ourselves against a seriously pathological sun, we had to put on, the ancient ancestral gods, or what they call the Natchez, taught us how to clothe ourselves for protection. That's why you see the ancestral women cover themselves completely, because, I say this to you again, women are the most susceptible to climatic changes and traumatic changes in the climate. And that if you sisters are dressing all sick and crazy, with crotch cutter pants all up into your yoni, dressing with your body and your shoulders all out, that means you done got yanged out. That means you got more testosterone in you, which means your genetics are perverted. See, when the women are dressing to the point where they can have a crotch cutter set of pants that's rubbing up directly against the yoni and separating the yoni and rubbing up against that delicate spot, and they don't feel nothing, they have become yang. Because that's for men. Men are the ones who need pants. Not because we just going to put it on for style. It's because pants afford us the best way to get rid of the extra heat that we make. Pants causes heat to be deflected from the body. Whereas the skirt, if used in layers, like your ancestors did, keeps heat trapped within the layers of the skirt. Now you can use the pants under the skirt if it's real cold and you're living in them crazy climates that you got to keep changing. Yeah, but your ancestors wrapped herself. She didn't wear bras because at the time the sun wasn't crazy and the atmosphere wasn't crazy. Therefore the people weren't crazy. Therefore the body was not just something to lust after. That's another form of sickness. So the sisters have to learn that her body and the way she treats it is the way the legacy that comes from that womb will be. If the woman is, and this is something that I'm definitely getting fighting from the brothers and sisters, if the sisters do not understand that their bodies dictate what's going to happen to the next generation, whether it's going to be insane or not, they will see that if they don't change and teach their daughters and their children, especially the girls, that there are certain things that they cannot do. I don't give a damn what the style is, because this European is setting the style trends for our young girls, not us. And they're dressing our children. And I know they say I'm crazy, but it isn't that I hate women and I wish y'all stop that. I don't hate women. That's stupid. Why would I want to help sisters if I hate them? Let me just say this, because we can get back to the DNA, but this is very important. Even what the Arabs use is plagiarized and ripped off from the African women or women of color, because the covering of the nose by what they call the exercise of purdah, where the women covered themselves, was a way to protect herself in poisonous environments, especially when she walked amongst men. What does that mean? When women walk amongst men, women who are real women, sensitive women, women of childbearing age, there is a specific pheromone given off by men because we're electrically charged. And those pheromones are actually signatures that can be read because scientists have taken infrared and all kinds of different light spectrums and have pointed it at animals that are in heat, and the pheromones are kicking off in different colors. And if that's the case, then men give off through their scent especially. certain particulate scent molecules that are breathed in by the woman. When she breathes that in, if she's a sensitive woman, boom, she starts ovulating. But we think that at the time, of course, we got the crazy Arabs taking it, who want to conquer, what do you call it? And the women now are being used and abused based upon something that the women did in order to protect themselves when walking amongst men. If they're not amongst their husbands, they cover. Not because they cover for modesty or the man don't want to see her face. That was nonsense. They covered because the men gave off a certain odor, especially when she was pregnant. She would never go walking amongst men or working with men when she was pregnant. Because you breathing in his signatures changes the genetic structure and signature of your baby. Wow. That's why you never saw the women. You would come in first and see the warriors. You can get past them, then you may come in and see some of the women if we allow it. But nowadays, it's like, everybody for themselves. And this is why we're in the madness we are today. At the time, our African women, or women of the ancient times, 100 to 150,000 years ago, knew what men were for. Men were to take the stress off of their lives. Because a stressed woman creates stressed children. So we created a stressless society for you. That's why when the white man came and saw women doing everything, that's because paternally, Africa was a paternal society, not patriarchal or matriarchal. It was a paternal society where we made sure that our women were happy. And only when this white man came in and changed everything and then created the science of anthropology to go back and study what he thought he was studying as a primitive peoples. No, there's no primitive peoples untouched by the madness of this Caucasoid. And that every society, every tribe he studies now is a pathological expression of when they met him 200 or 300 years ago. So he ain't going back trying to study somebody, well, this is what they do, and they've done this for thousands. No, they didn't. They did that in order to convert or to survive while you were there. The real indigenous peoples that you could see have not been touched by European hands or touched anything. Discovery destroys. It doesn't do anything to enlighten anybody. And all they're doing is going there and changing. When them Christians and them damn Jesuits came in there were no tribes that came in there. You can't study no tribe at the indigenous levels anymore. So the women were not beat up. Imagine a man who has got some kind of intelligence to build a pyramid is going to beat his woman for 10,000 years. Does that make any damn sense? In every African ancient society, the women are revered. Only in this Caucasian society, she is not. Because she was at war with her man. She used to raise the son to kill the father. It's all in their stories. But when you see the ancient Kemetic principles, you always see the male and the female behind him as the support mechanism to him. Never the other way around.
Never.
And that's all for all the sisters who want to think feminist. There is no woman in front of a man.
The twist is
that's madness. You don't let your woman go through the door first.
Changing everything from straight to being
that's white folks.
Crooked.
Mm-hmm.
I keep in my mind trying to see how this relates to what's going on right now with Joshua.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you, it is because of the gay mafia's agenda of changing everything from naturally coming into this world through Mother Earth, Mother
Interesting
Nature,
you say that.
to the
Yes.
perfect birth comes through.
What you do is you rape the women.
Is the creator.
But you rape the women.
Thinking on Earth.
And your seed becomes the woman now. You change up. Once you change that womb, the legacy of that tribe
because you never donated to that creator.
Because the womb, the first elements, the essence of that womb goes into that first child. Now the essence is no longer belonging to the males. So you have now you have eviscerated, or you have actually castrated the males by raping their women. And guess what? The Arab women would sing while their men did it.
This is what I'm understanding. Because of the nature of the African woman,
yes,
she could not kill and see them a woman.
No, she couldn't.
Even though it reflects.
Exactly. And that's because you are of the God principle. You are directly connected to the creative principle. So you would never do that because that would be the creator. No matter how it came here, it would be the creator. And you would have an explanation for that. But guess what? There are sisters out there now that no, this is not going to happen, and they're killing their children, but they're dying as well. They're taking they're taking poison, and they're killing themselves rather than giving birth to anybody else. No-win situation, and this is the last vestige, because this genocide that's going on right now is getting ready to turn everything around. I didn't want to get into this, but there has been a penalty that had to be paid for the passage of this consciousness into the next paradigm. And we were the ones who paid it, because we are the ones to take over to the next paradigm. And it's getting ready to shift. With Dr. Oyibo and with this brother named Philip, I believe, in Emwangali, or Ewagali, this guy that came from Oyibo's tribe, is shifting the whole consciousness of the planet now. He has no room. There is no room for him where it's going. That's why he has to create his stormtroopers. This is why the Star Wars trilogy was written, to show you where we're going back to. And you're going to see him walk in the streets today. Which is why the same genocide that you're speaking about going on in Sudan, is going on right here now. You see it happening.
Can you really repeat that? Okay. The same. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm. This is why the same genocide that's going on in Dhaka today in Sudan is reminiscent of what the genocide protocols are set up here for today. And all of the weapons from science is now going to be targeting the people of color. Walk Harlem today, and I guarantee you in 10 years, you won't see any black people there. If you do, they're going to be regimented to be consumers or people who do menial jobs. Even the Mexicans are going to become the quote-unquote new niggas up around Harlem. And you're going to see it happening. Yes, and if you go over to Queens, there are no black peoples, only in small little clusters. Where they all going? There it is. Everywhere. Everywhere. And this was a plan by the Bush administration to saturate, yes, with Mexico. That's why they call him El Zorro. The boy, the president, the fox. Smart. He just opened up and they opened up the borders because remember, he got the boy, Bush, he's got the Spanish blood in him. Spanish nobility. Yes. Spanish nobility. And they know what they're doing by putting them in, because these people do nothing for me. They need new niggas. They don't have to ship them over in boats no more. They just have to open the borders. Hey, coming down from Canada. It's the same way. They're going into Canada. You see, and they are stopping Africans. They have a kind of a quota system for Africans and for Haitians because they know what they have to do. Right? The genetics. It's the genetics. And they don't call them Spanish. They don't call them quote-unquote Indians. They call them Hispanics. Now, Hispanic is just another name genetically for white. The word Hispanic translates to mean white. That's right. If you look at the sheets, okay, white with Hispanic, black with white, they don't have pure white wasp anymore on those, what do you call the forms? The census forms. There's 6 different types of... Yes. Exactly. That's right. That the white people are still right. But their DNA now has reached a point where it's no longer able to continue. It's just like being cloned. If you clone, say, after 7 times, the strain is too weak for you to continue cloning. Well, remember, the Caucasoid was supposed to have maybe 1,000 to 2,000 year cycle. It's up.
Oh, it is.
It's up. And the thing is that he has to escape. In my book, The Wounded Womb, I talked about him finding a way to escape back into the gene pool that can transit from this lockdown